one of the biggest sort of structural changes is they've changed the stage format. So we're going to have 3 stages this year. They'll all directly feed into qualification for LAN. And also Asia is matching this time. So Asia will also have 3 stages. So everything will be in sync. So any kind of roster and transfer windows will all line up as well. So initial impressions of this change?
Not just worse. One less tournament.
Hot take.
You know, in Europe, it looks kind of great. You know, like there's 5 teams that are making really good money. But over in North America, it's a completely different story because there are no Saudi orgs in North America. There's nobody to prop the scene up. You know, you have to be on a partner team or you're just not going to be making any money at all. There are literally no orgs in North America paying anyone any money outside of the partnership program.
I think players have such high expectations now because everyone knows that the bidding went so high this year that even if you had like 1 or 2 offers, you were still going to be asking for a lot of money just because you knew that everyone else was getting a lot of money. But the third team kind of got screwed out of it because there's so many players left, you know.
Because
like, Spark.
To be fair, yeah, that's true. Like Spark,
Spark is not going to team.
Unbelievable.
Like stuff like that is crazy. There are players still left for picking up.
I got a hot take. If we're ready for a hot take, can we handle it?
I don't know if I
handle
can.
A hot take.
Okay, so I've been thinking about this. I think since EWC, I think the fact that we've got like, especially Juno and Hazard, I actually think we should start looking towards 2 bans each team instead of 1. Sorry, Astro, obviously to ruin that.
That's just for me.
Lucio and Juno gone.
Yeah, I actually feel somewhere.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 31 of Uncoachable, our first episode of 2025. Our New Year's resolution was to actually record the podcast. And like all good New Year's resolutions, we've started on the 15th of January because it's not about how you start, it's about how you finish. And we've got a great group of finishers today. We've got our guest, FunnyAstro. He's on. I actually interviewed FunnyAstro yesterday and we talked a little bit about his team and all the changes coming up in this year, which we're also going to cover in this podcast. And actually, Astro didn't know any of the changes that were happening last year. So luckily, I did that interview. So Astro is now informed of everything that's changing. And he hopefully has some good takes for us. Welcome, Daniel.
Thank you. I've maybe read some of the rules and things about hero bans now, so I know what's going on. Give my 2 cents.
You might also notice now Unter might just be standing in this episode holding a trophy with his eyes closed for most of it. But don't worry, he's fine. It's just a few technical difficulties. He's on the farm right now. We don't need to explain any of that. It will make sense eventually. But we're all here.
We'll see the news report of the 20 cows that are killed. It all makes sense, guys. That's all you need to know.
20 cows dead from dehydration in rural Victoria. You'll get it.
Yeah, that was Max.
Normally this is the time where you put a disclaimer when there were no animals harmed in the making of this show, but unfortunately I don't know if we can actually guarantee that this time.
Anyway, if you know, you know.
So we're ready to start. We've got a brand new year of Overwatch action to look forward to. So I thought we'd start by looking at some of the changes and format changes going into 2025. Maybe a good place to start is one of the biggest sort of structural changes is they've changed the stage format. So we're going to have 3 stages this year. They'll all directly feed into qualification for LAN. And also Asia is matching this time. So Asia will also have 3 stages. So everything will be in sync. So any kind of roster and transfer windows will all line up as well. So initial impressions of this change?
Not just worse. One less tournament.
Hot take. I thought we were going to be super positive, but we've come in with an immediate negative take. Let's hear it.
We just 1 less tournament, you know? We had 4 stages last time. We've gone down to 3. I feel like everyone was popping off saying this year's a big thing, but we've got the same amount of lands as last year, just with 1 less online stage.
Don't you think that
but surely
maybe
the prize money might like equate, presumably? You reckon?
I don't think it does.
It's gonna go down, we're gonna lose? No way, right?
What is from just the stages? I've done the maths.
It's like because it's also smaller
stages.
But it's also less stages but longer stages. Right, so like
yeah, we're talking money here.
The most important part of it, the prize money. But also, isn't it better? Like, it doesn't matter how long the stage is. People only care about the playoff run, right? Like, that's the shit people like to watch.
I don't think
People
that's
might-
necessarily true.
People might clock in
Like-
for the regular season, but it's nowhere near as fun. The playoffs is way much more fun.
Because what they did was they remade they've actually made the tournament fit into the time way better. You know, like in stage 3 of 24, like it was wank. You know, it was just a tournament that amounted to nothing. It was like winning stage 3 meant basically nothing in terms of how it didn't
Not like
qualify you through to the
$30,000.
LAN or
Fucking
yeah, blah 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 blah. The 30K was cool, but like at the cost of one LAN, they've completely redone the format to actually be like significantly better to actually watch the tournament.
Yeah,
you know? Like as someone that
There's more
tortured
continuity, yeah.
himself. Yeah, as someone that tortured himself watching stages 3 and 4 on stream, like 90% of those games were absolute fucking rubbish. Between all of these groups games that didn't matter, some of the best games being missed at the start of like every bracket by, you know, only broadcasting 1 of 4. I think by getting everything on broadcast and dragging out the stages a little bit more, like adjusting it so that, you know, the game's going to be a little more balanced, or at very least everything will be on show. I think, you know, at least from a viewer perspective, it'll be better. And, you know, you can complain about how you get a little less prize money, but I mean, what are the chances that you, Daniel, will be winning that prize money by coming first, for one? And then, you know, second up, you got at least another 200. You got at least another 200 quid a month by virtue of this wonderful partner program, which will probably equate to more than whatever you would have made in prize money from coming 4th in Europe or whatever you're going to do.
Yeah, the partner program's good. I can't complain about the partner program.
I actually
complain
can't
there's
believe
one less tournament.
I think I've never said these words before, but Max is actually exactly right. I think the regular season changes has to be better because like going through Swiss, which was obviously insane, but then the group stages, which was like pretty fucking boring, and then just 1 week of playoffs. Like I don't know how many weeks it's going to be of regular season, but you're going to get to see everybody play each other once, which at least makes like you'd much rather watch a regular season game of like TU versus TM than any group stage games where it was just Ronald McDonald versus Billy Big Bob, you know? So I think actually, I didn't consider the money side of it, but I think in terms of everything from like no more circuit point bullshit, so that's not going to happen, everything being in sync, and I think just in general, like the quality of games before the playoffs is just objectively higher. I feel like all of these changes seem overwhelmingly positive.
Yeah,
I think it's 6 weeks of regular season
tournament,
and then 2 weeks for regional playoffs. So it will still be a double limb bracket for regional playoffs, but you play it over 2 weekends rather than just like one big weekend. Yeah.
Yeah.
The only thing is, we'll probably get hit with some super patches before playoffs, right? Like that's like there's going to be some sort of like really awkward patch timings because like the patches never care about the Overwatch. So there's just going to be some timing where there's just going to be like the playoffs to qualify for China, and there's just going to be some like bigger patch. But apart from that, actually, I think we're looking good, boys. Overwatch is
did you?
We are so back.
Did you want to take bets on how long it takes for them to fix Hazard? Because you know you said that the patches don't care about the Overwatch or whatever, and I am absolutely convinced that the next balance patch will do absolutely nothing to address the most broken character in the game, that's server admin 24/7. So, do we want to take bets on how many patches it takes before that hero is not a must pick on every single map?
Yeah, I agree with you.
2 days before playoffs or something.
It's because they're gonna nerf something, and they're gonna like tone down his numbers, and it's like, yeah, you're kind of missing the point.
They already tried that, though. They already tried.
They reduced
do
the
it
block
again.
damage and stuff, right?
Yeah,
But
it's like the same thing they did with Juno, you know? Like Juno just gets hit 4 patches in a row, but it's like, oh, we'll give him a little bit more ult charge or a little bit slower.
Just a bit more.
Yeah, and it's like, well, like you're not like addressing the problem. Like Hazard is just like unbelievably broken, can do everything. I feel like they need the block. I fucking hate the block design. That's the only thing that I fucking hate. I feel like that's the one thing about Blizzard's design which does my head in, is that like Mauga used to have like the guns which shoot through every block, and that was like his part of his kit. But because Hazard had the privilege of being born later, he's just indestructible to that shit. And it makes no sense from a design point of view. Same, Reinhardt used to have a pin. Now every pin just destroys Reinhardt's, you know, because they just got released later, like fucking Orisa, Mario, all this shit. But to answer Max's original question, yeah, I think you're right. I think they'll do like some soft cock patch where they change some numbers, and then they'll do another soft cock patch. And then maybe by the time we get to China and like
right before playoffs,
yeah, maybe then it'll be like a different hero.
Expecting 3 patches by China is absolutely insane as well. I reckon. You know, just thinking that there's going to be 3 balance changes by then.
It's quite long, isn't it, right?
I think
it's like, is it March?
It's April.
I mean, the
April.
the devs are on their Christmas holidays right now, and that's going to extend all the way through to the middle of March.
No, next Tuesday we get mid-season, I reckon, and then we'll get. I think we'll easy get 3 patches before China.
Yeah.
I reckon one of them will just skim over Hazard for no reason, you know?
Yeah,
like
I
they're gonna
agree
look
with
at they're gonna look at the Orisa win rate in like bronze and think, shit. Maybe Orisa needs like 50 more armor and 50 less health is what I'm feeling.
The thing is though, right, isn't Hazard's win rate across all elos just absurd? Like I feel like when you look at like top 500, every single tank is like must play Hazard. So I feel like
that's not all elos, is it? That's one elo.
Yeah, but I think it is 2, no? Like is it not like I don't know.
The stats. I'm checking overbuff right now.
I swear.
I don't know. I want to know how are the Xbox players doing and the Switch players doing on Hazard? Because I heard it's actually like it's really hard to turn around on Hazard on a Nintendo Switch, and they also need to balance for those players, is my understanding. So
Buff doesn't even have it. So
I've had my ears to the ground talking to the common folk, and they tell me even at the lower ranks, Hazard is busted. So I actually think,
what common folk are you? What are we talking about here?
I know the people, you know, man of the people.
Just a man of the people, a real populist politician you are.
Exactly.
You know, you're one of the people.
Not an elitist like you know, only things about yourself.
No, of course not.
Yeah.
I mean, you're exactly like Nigel Farage, you know, he dresses up as a farmer and he goes to those farmers rallies to act like he's one of the people. But in reality, you know, he's just some rich from the city.
You're literally at a farm right now, Max.
I wouldn't know anything about that.
Yeah, dressing up, right? Yeah. You're not doing any of the farm work, are you? You're just posing, you fucking elitist snob.
Oh, it's real.
One thing that comes with this as well is that it is going to be direct qualification now. So circuit points done away with, direct qualification just for top 2 from each region, go through and play that first LAN in China as well. So in theory, a lot simpler system. It's going to be obvious who is qualifying and who's not qualifying. It's just who wins the game, like it was in Korea last season. But it means the stakes are obviously going to be higher. Some of the stuff we talked about patches is going to be really sort of life or death for teams as we go into that final sort of couple of weekends. But overall, is this better than circuit points?
Yeah, I think so. It's a little bit. I guess it's like a little bit more ropey, especially because we lost a qualification spot. Like I think that you can just have one bad day and just like miss out on like the entire season. It feels super ropey. Yeah.
Like,
but maybe
I don't know how it works with subbing
is,
rosters and changing rosters. Yeah, I mean, I'm down to gamble a little bit.
But because I think like no matter how you do in stage 1, it doesn't like you'll just qualify for stage 2 if you want to anyway, you know. So that you could change your entire roster and still qualify for the second LAN. So like all of that stuff, I guess. It's going to simplify a lot because we're not going to have any of those like bullshit situations we had at the end of last year.
It was kind of fun trying to work out who would actually qualify, like on the little circuit point calculators that people made online. I thought it was a good time, but I don't think it was necessarily the best solution. Sit there for hours like, oh, what if this team comes first? Oh, what if this team wins here? But I think this way is a lot more simple. And that's like, that's got to be the end goal, right?
This is like significantly better for anyone that isn't deeply invested in qualifying and they're like, you know, fighting between second and third in a particular region. It sucks that, you know, we lose multiple slots in NA and EU. But I suppose at the end of the day, it's kind of fair, right? Like, I feel like China 1, definitely deserving of a slot. China 2, maybe the Chinese second place scene isn't that insane. But, you know, overall, like, I feel like it's only fair that NA and EU have the same amount of qualifying slots as Korea, given Korea consistently comes like absolute top at all of the events.
I think we're lucky we've got the same amount of spots as them, to be honest.
Well, that was the big outcry, I think, during the season, right? Maybe especially at Stockholm, where people were like, there's only 2 Korean teams here. Zeta Division missed out because they lost 2 map 5s for Dallas and for Stockholm. But now, less spots for NA and EU, but China gets 2 spots, which I think seems fair. I mean, in general, we've not really talked about it, I think, on the podcast yet, but it's good that China's back. It's nice they finally managed to settle the deal and get the game back available over there.
I feel like actually there's never been a better time to be a Chinese fan, you know? Like my Twitter is just filled with like endless Chinese propaganda these days. We're back in Overwatch.
Red Note stuff, right?
Yeah, that's it. I'm ahead of the curve. Like people need to know I've been saying this for fucking ages, just so we're all on the same page. Everyone's coming. But honestly, as a China fan, this is just what a time to be alive. We
Yeah,
just need
and
like Chinese
the
like
big question would just
gambling
be
sponsors or something, and then we're just fucking minted. That's what we need.
Well, after seeing some of the discourse on Twitter and Reddit in the past couple of days, I was thinking we could actually give 2 slots to Japan at all of these lands, because apparently we're completely reliant on Japan to carry our esports scene for the rest of time. So if we could, maybe take a slot away from North America and Europe, we could slide that over to Japan, and they could really carry us over the line.
Well,
Reasonable?
they've actually done the opposite of what you've said, Max, and they've actually made it harder for Japan to qualify, because now
they've actually made it impossible, have they?
Yeah, because now what happens last year, what happened is there would be the Asia LAN, which would be the top teams from Korea, Pacific, and Japan would all get flown out to Korea, and they'd have a tournament. Again, the Japanese and Pacific teams would still have to beat a Korean team to get one of those top 2 spots, which is impossible. But now it's a similar thing where the top teams from Japan, Pacific, and Korea will play each other, but they play each other in an online group stage, which is going to be, I think it's something like 2 Korean teams, then a Japanese and a Pacific team in each group, which means the ability for these Japanese and Pacific teams to even qualify for the Asia LAN is now really taken away in a realistic sense. So it feels like Japan and Pacific have actually been probably the regions most screwed by these format changes in Asia.
Well, it should have just been better.
Yeah, listen, this was when Korea got 2 slots and we got 3. All I was hearing was the community crying about it. It's not fair. It should be about which team's the strongest. Well, this is what you get, okay? The Koreans are the strongest. The Koreans are going to dominate. Let's see if they complain about China number 2 seed as much as they could complain about the EU seeds, Maybe they will, maybe they won't. This is what fucking happens, You want a meritocracy? You're going to get Koreans, okay?
Who is the second Chinese team?
I think on paper they have to be the worst team at the LAN, right?
It's gonna be like Jimmy and Jinmu, maybe Billadeng. Billadeng is like next up Chinese tank.
Jimmy and Billy.
Jimmy and Ginny, yeah, the J DPS duo. And who was it? Who was the guy who got kicked off once again? Lengtser, is it? Yeah, Lengtser's on. I think probably going to be on a team like that. They could also import Koreans as well, right? That's like maybe
every region loves to do that.
Yeah,
it seems to be a worldwide phenomenon.
It's becoming quite popular for some reason.
Yeah.
But so maybe with like a bit of a Korean import, they can sort of buff that second team up to maybe a little bit closer, and it's not too bad. Maybe it will at least be maybe indistinguishable from some of the strength of teams we saw take the 3rd place spot in like North America and EMEA last year. So I think it's like closable maybe with imports.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. I feel like the one thing, like, to be honest, I think even like Chinese number 1 seed, I think not being able to play the game for years and compete just has to be a killer, it just feels really like we said this about EWC, and I guess we were like relatively proved correct, except for Falcons taking the dive mirror. Maybe without Rush at the helm, they would have been really good. Maybe it was just a coaching problem for once again. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like I just don't see them being that strong. Maybe like the return means in a few years, if Overwatch is still alive, that like the Chinese scene can return to what it was, because you'll get everyone playing again and you'll get the eyes again. But it feels like there just has to be something like lost,
It'd be so hard to get the fans back after they've disappeared for so long. You can't just take a couple of years off, come back, and then.
The good thing
they
about
had
China,
like some warm-up tournaments, right? Like they had like the Aurora, they've got the Pro.
Yeah, they had the little
so
ones.
there's maybe like rebuilding the fan base a little bit.
I think there's a lot of people in China. This is what people don't know. Is China has a lot of people, so
I didn't know that.
Yeah, this is like one of those like you need.
News to me.
If you know fact. But presumably you just need to catch like the 0.000000001 of China, and then you're still millionaires. So it's possible.
Speaking of someone who maybe aren't millionaires, or maybe they are millionaires now, there's been an announcement very recently that the Korea broadcast for OWCS is moving to SOOP exclusively. So we've had this in the past in Overwatch. We've had exclusivity deals with certain streaming platforms, and the Korean language broadcast is going to be moved over to exclusively on SOOP, which is where obviously the SOOP Cup was over in December. The general feedback from the Twitter comments, mostly in Korean and translated Korean, so it's a little bit of, don't know exactly what they're saying, but the sentiment very much seems to be, fuck you. Not very popular. Not very popular. That's not going to be on YouTube. or on Twitch, at least with the handful of replies already. So I don't know. I mean, it doesn't really affect me because I just watch a co-stream on Twitch, watch a co-stream on YouTube, watch a co-stream on SOOP. It's all the same, really. I don't know how popular SOOP really is in Korea. My impression was it was like more of a go-to streaming platform there. So I'm not sure exactly why this is big pushback. Ultimately, the exclusivity, maybe it takes eyes away from Twitch. But in theory, there's probably more money going to WDG as a result, right? Like they've been paid for this exclusivity.
I mean, I was always a big fan of the YouTube deal, even though everyone was a hater, because I thought just any money makes more sense than no money. So maybe the same stuff applies here. Also, Twitch is like low-key dead in Korea anyway, you know? Like all of their rules make it really hard to like I think a lot of
Doesn't
them
really work anymore.
Yeah. So maybe it's like to go away from like Twitch is just actually quite reasonable. But to be honest, I'm not in touch with the working class of Korea, so I don't know the difference between like all the
I think it's the YouTube one they're more annoyed about. It's not on YouTube anymore. Because even like some of the like Lip and stuff streams on YouTube, like there's still like I think they still use that platform quite a lot.
I mean, as long as someone's paying professional esports broadcasters some money, I think you can't really complain. Like, unless Blizzard have just decided to do it on SOOP without being paid, it's got to be a good thing. Right?
It must have been. Yeah, it's 100%.
Yeah,
maybe not 100%, but it would be crazy if it wasn't a paid exclusivity deal. So, in theory, this hopefully means more money is coming into the region.
Yeah, I mean, a free exclusivity deal would be sick. I do think that there's shades of the YouTube deal in this, where I'm pretty sure that like SOOP is not the biggest streaming service in Korea anyway. Like, trying to watch some Korean players, and it's like not very many of them stream on SOOP. I think more of them stream on like the Naver service. I think it's like CHZZK. Don't quote me on the letters, but yeah, I'm pretty sure more of the Korean people for Overwatch stream on Naver instead of SOOP. But a lot of people do like multi-streaming and whatnot in Korea already. Like you were saying, Lip streams on YouTube. Is that right? And like he's probably streaming on 3 different platforms at once. Like there's a lot of multi-streaming happening in Korea. If you see like any Korean streamer streaming on Twitch right now with like a VPN or something, I'm pretty sure they're also simultaneously streaming on the Korean services to actually reach their audience. So maybe there'll be like some vague issue in terms of, the viewership is like fragmented because Korea doesn't have one service that everybody uses absolutely. And I'm pretty sure SOOP is bigger in Thailand than it is in Korea right now in terms of how many people use it. But overall, the Korean scene, they're probably switched on enough to turn on the broadcast on the correct website. And if somebody's getting paid for it to be on that website, then that's better than not getting paid. Even though people will love to say that the YouTube deal killed Overwatch.
It's obviously it's got shades of the exact same argument, of just like nobody's gonna watch it, but about the same number of people watch it in reality.
Yeah,
they're Korean, mate.
Like the fans will find it, right? The fans will find it.
Yep.
Okay, then we had a few other announcements as well. We had the announcement of the LAN locations, not all the LAN dates, but we're going to be going to China, which obviously lines up nicely with the return of China OWCS as well. And then we're going to be going to Riyadh to maybe nobody's surprise. And then maybe the most surprising one. Maybe China's still more surprising. But we're going back to Stockholm, right? So NA is the region that has been left out of these 3 events here, which is maybe the most surprising thing, considering in Overwatch League, incredibly American-centric in terms of the LAN locations and the events and stuff. So America's actually been sort of shorted off this list.
I think it's got to be good that it's come back to Stockholm. It means it did well the first time, They've got to be happy with how many people showed up and bought tickets. So they're coming back again for round 2. Good signs.
Yeah, but it was sold out for the Overwatch area at least, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
The actual seating area. So
You finally get some LANs.
I don't know if that's necessarily like why they've done it, to be honest. I reckon they just budgeted for 3 LANs throughout the year. China was like 100% thing because China's coming back, and it's probably like significantly cheaper to host a LAN in China compared to in North America. And then the only place you can host it at the end of the year is Stockholm because it's like a EFG partnership and they're rolled in with DreamHack really heavily. So I feel like it's more just an arrangement of convenience more so than like they sold lots of seats at Stockholm. I don't think it's like necessarily an indication of success, even though, I reckon that orchestra alone was enough to bring everyone back to Stockholm. I saw you moved in the crowd, Daniel. Notice you were in the crowd.
They were shit.
Yeah. I mean, all the pros, the orchestra heads, the ones that know, reckon that they were an amateur orchestra. But all good. I just don't
I-
necessarily think that the land selection here was a result of
Yeah.
anything more than convenience
I
and
feel-
it just being the cheapest.
When everyone was talking, like before anything was announced, everyone said it was just going to be in America. So when it came back to Sweden, I think it surprised people. But I think there's just like some, like, I feel like it's not like a big deal either way. It's just where the EFG stuff could do. Big one I think is China, because I think that maybe has potential to be pretty fun. I imagine we'll definitely sell out. Like I imagine that it'll be sold out.
It'll be like the first big event in China in age. Like the game's not been there, and then all of a sudden, one of the biggest events of the year is happening right in China. It's like probably a good way. We talk about like how many of the fans or stuff did we lose while Overwatch wasn't in China. This is probably a great way to draw attention back to the game and draw attention back to the scene.
And when we go, guys, you guys are gonna be so China pilled afterwards. You know, like you're gonna.
I'm actually so excited to go. I've heard such great things from you, Chris, that it's best be the number one experience of my life. If it's anything worse than that, it's going to be a disappointment.
Firstly, you're going to see no homeless people. That's just a fact, okay?
Okay.
Well, that's true. That's because they don't exist over there.
That's an uncoachable side topic, okay? It's going to be so cheap. You're going to need to download a few apps, but that's okay. And honestly, the food is going to be really good. It's going to be super cheap. You're going to love the public transport and all of the little technology they've got. It's going to be a wonderful time.
Sounds fucking mint.
You think these Overwatch players? You think Overwatch players are going to be using public transport while they're over there, mate?
I mean, I suppose probably not, but we can, guys. It's really cheap. you got to go through security to get on the subway because they don't want any of that, like no one setting each other on fire or something in China. But overall, it's going to be a wonderful place to be, and it's going to be busy, I guess.
With Chinese fans, do you reckon the Chinese fans watch Uncoachable? They see your love for China.
Mate, honestly,
you're going to show up there and they're going to be like, I fucking love you, Chris. Always rooted for us.
Honestly, I've got zero love from Chinese fans, even though I do like endless shilling for them. It's kind of fucked up, you know? You know, when you see, like, you remember when Cruz, you remember all those years ago when Cruz went to Korea and spoke like 2 words of Korean?
Oh, they loved it.
Got like an uncomprehendable Korean fan base. I'm out here like literally selling like CCP propaganda. And I get fucking nothing. Like, it's actually fucked up, you know? I got married there. I took nothing but positive about China, but where's the Chinese fans, you know? Like, but after we're gonna win the LAN in China, they're gonna interview me. I'll whop out some Chinese, then it's done, you know? Then I've got the bag secured.
The deal.
That's the key you're missing, you know? You said Cruz, he had like a couple of Korean phrases that he could use to be like, oh, he's trying to learn the language, bless him. You need to work in a couple of phrases.
Trademark Chris Chinese phrases.
I'm gonna crack them down. I actually think for me, there is genuinely no pressure I've had in my life except that fucking playoffs to qualify for China. Because like my wife is gonna be so excited that we get to go and see the family. She's gonna have to pre-book time off work and stuff. So if I come into the living room, sorry babe, we got knocked out by fucking Astro fucking dunked us in. Like, it's actually so dangerous, you know? Like, I have to grind to get to China.
The worst thing there is as well, if she books time off work and you don't qualify, you're then just stuck at home, not in China, all that time already booked off. Yeah.
I don't know. Especially if we do a Korean boot camp, she wants to come to Korea so we can see all of our like friends in Korea and go to China. It's going to be like the best month of our life. And then I'm just going to like get fucked by EXO and then I've ruined the marriage.
What can make we said, will regular season, will the stakes be high enough? Chris's marriage is on the line in some of these regular season games.
Literally everything.
Every match sat there just praying he doesn't lose. Please let me go to China.
If I fuck up the draft one time, oh my god.
Oh, if you fuck up the draft,
we've seen the bans before, Chris. It's gonna be fucked. Chris bans.
What? No. That's cap.
Terrible Chris bans. Can't be trusted doing it.
Let's see, man. Let's see.
Actually, a beautiful segue into our next topic, which was the hero bans, the introduction of hero bans to OWCS. And everything is basically the same as the Esports World Cup. A few small changes, maybe one key change. Some of the small changes are, rather than the loser getting to pick whether they ban first or second, they just have to ban first. But I think that's what everyone did in 99% of situations at Esports World Cup anyway, so I don't think that changes too much. The biggest change is that now you have to ban the heroes after you submit the roster, which means if you see a certain player comes in who you know is for Winston play, you know, is for May player or whatever, you can target ban that hero if that role is not protected. So this is the biggest change, I think, from strategic and a tactical approach here. How do we feel about this compared to what we got to do last year at the Esports World Cup?
I think from my perspective, I feel like there was like two balancing acts that business had to do, right? Like they had to like make what's like the most maybe like competitive and fun format, but then we also have to be like cognizant that like we actually like EWC was the breaks were too much, you know? Like it like when I was rewatching it, it genuinely is like 10, 15-minute breaks like between maps like super regularly. So I feel like this format where you don't get to like choose your roster like after the bans and you don't have to do all this, they can streamline the process a lot. So I feel like actually I'm kind of okay with it. I think it in theory it's nicer to do the bans first then the roster, but I understand that that just adds like an extra like minute or two into the decision making time, and I think it just I think they would maybe this is about as good as we could do.
Is it?
Yeah, I feel like it. Oh, I just feel like it's a change that kind of, you know, completely screws any specialist player forever. You know, like you can't do the bans and then sub in your specialist afterwards to work for it. But at the same time, like all of the positives on the production side make it totally worthwhile. And at the end of the day, like I don't know, like rewarding like hard one tricks or like super specialized players at the top level. I mean, you can argue that they don't need to be doing that at all, right? Like it's cool to just reward flexibility instead and reward smaller rosters in the same breath. So overall, I mean, I think that like, you know, it fucks particular players, people that are like hard one tricks and can't do it any other way. But overall, it's a positive for people that actually wanted to see hero bans in effect, because it won't ruin the broadcast to do it.
I think the worry is there are certain times like, you know, if here players are target banned, do I necessarily want to see some of the best players in the world compete? But then they have their good heroes banned off them. So I'm just having to see them play, I don't know, Hambin play a Winston or something that's not like, can't we just get the best players on the best heroes? But I do think there's also, because you get to protect bans still as well, there is an element of, okay, we're subbing in our May player, we're going to ban a DPS, so therefore we still get to play May. They can't touch May.
Yeah, I was going to say, you can
we
still
sub in
have
our
these
Rana-
specialist
You
players.
can work around it, yeah. So it just means it's maybe like a loser's pick thing. Like maybe you only really want to play your specialist roster when you get to pick the map. You don't want to, it's like higher risk to do it when the other team's picking the map, because they could like just make it really difficult for you.
Just another advantage for the losing team, right? Make games a lot closer because you can sub in a specialist, pick the map you want, protect the ban so he can pick that hero, and then you should be good for your map. You can try and cheese a couple of maps here and there.
I've got a hot take. If we're ready for a hot take, can we handle it?
I don't know if I
Handle a
can.
hot take.
Okay, so I've been thinking about this. I think since EWC, I think the fact that we've got like, especially Juno and Hazard, I actually think we should start looking towards 2 bans each team instead of 1. Sorry, Astro, obviously to ruin that.
That's just for me.
Lucio and Juno gone.
Yeah. I
See you
actually
later.
feel somewhere if you're trying to ban like a dive tank, it's impossible because like there's like so many options. Again, like if you're trying to brawl like a brawl tank or even a brawl support, I feel like actually the cast is so big now and you have so many options that if you're a hard brawl one trick team like back in the day, before you had 1 or 2 bans that would just fucking kill you, bang, deader. Now there's almost always a way to work around it, which in a way make the hero bans less effective. So I actually feel like some sort of like system where you do like both teams do 2 blind bans where you just ban regardless. And if they overlap, then there's only like 2 heroes or 3 heroes banned. I actually could go for that. But I actually think the system...
So you're just stealing the Marvel Rivals system. That's 2 blind bans.
I'm level 7 on Marvel Rivals, but I mean...
You just straight up stole their ban system.
Shit, okay. But to be fair, Marvel Rivals, as far as I'm aware, is a Chinese company, so they probably know what they're doing, you know?
From word on the street, it is the Overwatch killer, so we should copy everything that they're doing. They
I
seem
feel
to
like
know what's up.
I feel like to know if you're right or wrong, we kind of need to like see it in practice more first. We need to see
Yeah.
like when we have this first, because this is also the sort of thing that can actually change. If they tweak the ban system as we go through the year, it's really doable, right? It doesn't ruin qualification or structure for anyone. So I think it's much more like a see how this feels, see how it feels when it's after rosters bans are after roster submission as well. And if it does feel genuinely bad, or like we're just getting like situations that are just feel unfair for certain teams, or just feel not very engaging from a viewer perspective, or the bans just don't feel like they're really achieving anything or having any impact in the game, then that's like the time to tweak the system or take action.
Depends on what you want the hero bans to do, right? Because I think the main thing people want to stop is just like the same 5 heroes every game mirror matchup. And regardless of what you say, like if there's a different flavor of brawl comp, that's still going to do it, you know? Like it's still not going to be the same 5 heroes every time. It's just going to be like a different backline here, different tank there, but it'll still be the same sort of style. But maybe the viewers will like that. They'll be like, oh, it's new and fresh because we've swapped out Hazard for Mauga for one map. Like, for us, it might feel really similar, but for the viewers, they might love it.
No, I think you're exactly right. I think like the 2 ban solution, I think it like makes it maybe like 2% better. You know, like I actually feel like both systems are pretty good. Like I'm excited to do hero bans. I think it's the right decision. I think the format we have is pretty good. I think you're right. Like I guess the only problem we had was like if you looked at the Korean SOOP Cup, the hero bans didn't change shit there. Every team just like banned irrelevant pieces and just played the mirror till death anyway. But maybe that's just the Korean honor problem, you know, where they refuse.
It's the Korean mindset. Where you kill Bracket, it's the same mirror for every fucking game, and they just refuse to ever swap hero.
There was some of it. There was some like there was a few bans where they were like, you could see they were targeting like Sojin or something because they were like, ah, fuck, their hit scan's better, but let's just force them in free to play Tracer, and then he's probably going to have a worse time all of a sudden, you know, like some double flex DPS teams get an advantage. So there was still like some normal ones. So I don't know how much of it is, like you said, like how much of it is a real problem and how much of it is just a Korean problem.
To be fair, I think if we nerf Hazard and we get like quite a nice like rock paper scissors meta anyway, then actually it'll all feel really good. But like we said, 3 patches away.
Yeah, I definitely feel like in SOOP it was just because it was also new, you know, like it was basically like a mid-tournament thing for them, so they didn't have a whole lot of time to figure it out. Like in the first couple of games, you saw that there were like 0 relevant bans at all, but then towards the end they started banning out, you know, DPS picks, supports. There wasn't a lot of Hazard banning happening. I'll admit that. But you know, overall, like they were still making use of the ban system. It was just like really fresh with the mirror that they had to play. Like, they had to pivot mid-tournament.
I think it was something literally like the patch was Tuesday night or like Tuesday night, like European time. So then for the Koreans, it meant they woke up, they had a tournament match, and the patch happened overnight. So it was literally just like a turn up, play it, deal with it type thing. So I think that you probably just get that in any situation, right? Like if it's just a brand new patch and you have to play a game the next day, oh fuck it, we're still playing the same comps. We don't really know, like just stick to what we know. Then one of the other changes that have come with this is also a change to the map pool, not just in terms of what maps are in the pool, which we always get changed by every stage, but they've also changed the structure of it. So there's less maps overall, and there's now groupings of maps. So we still have Control, we still have Escort, Push and Class are still together, but now Hybrid and Flashpoint have been smushed together as well. So you'd still do the same thing, whether you start on Control, the loser picks for map and mode, except when you get to map 5, you get everything's unlocked except for maps that have already been played. So you go back to Control, you could pick another Hybrid or whatever. So I don't really know. I mean, I think the big concept behind this was there's less maps to practice, so it's easier for the teams. But I don't really know if this changes anything, really. I don't know how it will play out in a real series, or if it gives an advantage to certain types of teams or certain types of comps or anything. It's a bit.
I feel it's going to be such a minimal change that it's just a way for them to squish in all the different map types, so that there isn't just one that gets left unplayed.
Yeah.
I can't see how it's going to really benefit or hurt anyone.
They've
still got Escort as its own type.
I would have preferred to see like Flashpoint Clash or Push Clash merged together into one and have 5 game types, you know, because overall, like, I feel like the one thing about the way they've done it now is like the map 5 losers pick is like really significant now, right? With the whole map pool opening up
Massive.
at that same point. I
Two
think it's like
escorts
really
is really
significant.
annoying if you're like a brawl
true.
team.
Yeah, I think that the map 5 losers pick is like extremely strong now when you get access to the entire pool, because there are definitely like specialized maps within the pool, and if you're not getting shoehorned into like one game type with it, and instead you get to pick from everything, you can really like push it as hard as you possibly want to into whatever your strength is. So I think that the map 5 losers pick is a bit disproportionately strong now, but I guess it was actually the same case before in the sense that, if you were good at what the map 5 game type was going to be, then you were that team anyway. So maybe it's like a bit of a nothing burger at the end of the day. It also just kind of feels ugly sometimes with the pairings, that there's like a mixture of game types within the picks, but who cares?
Yeah, I don't think it's a massive deal. I think actually, ironically, when Ilios comes back in, I think that actually will be like, because it's in theory, it's a Korean team can then like take Ilios, and then they can guarantee like 2 escorts or 1 like big hybrid into 1 escort, like across a 5 map series, which means that like if you're like a dive team, then you can actually guarantee 3 really, really strong dive maps. But also I think that like hero bans like negates it in a way. Like I feel like Ilios is easier to win if Anna's banned, for example, if you're a brawl team, than if it's not. So I don't know. I think in reality, it's not going to change too much. Like I think Suravasa will be picked like almost every time by a lot of teams, because I think the fact you can remove hybrid from the best brawl map and remove hybrid makes that like maybe that slot hybrid / Suravasa really, really valuable. Like unless you're like a Korean team that's going to pick a flashpoint immediately every time for no reason, I think most smart teams are going to target that map selection. If you want to play like Blizzard World or Suravasa, they're so widely different, and being able to cancel the other one out is quite valuable. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's really, really relatively insignificant.
Yeah, I mean, maybe one of the sad things is I actually feel like both Flashpoint maps are actually some of the better maps we have in Overwatch in terms of like the comps we get to see. I think the mode actually works very well in terms of like watchability. So it's a bit sad that we lose that map, but I don't know if that just kind of descends into I like these maps, I don't like these maps, which map should be in the pool type thing, which is very subjective.
I think people just want to see all the maps, right? Want to see a bit of everything.
You just want to avoid like
One of
seeing
each
the same
mode to
map
get
every
played.
time, right?
Yeah,
you
I
just
think
don't want to
they might have to change it if, like Chris says, if everyone just picks Flashpoint, because I think that's pretty likely to happen in Europe.
I think it's
hybrid just won't get played because no one really wants to play that.
It's the same thing that happens with Clash, right? Like nobody actually ever picks Clash unless they need like a Hail Mary pick or something, because everyone just wants to play the pushbacks instead. So you sort of miss a mode, you lose a mode indirectly.
Yeah, I think it is interesting because if you look at it from like a brawl team's perspective, the way that it was last year was that you should never pick Flashpoint / Clash, because you were guaranteed a good map no matter what. So like you never had to worry about that. So you would always pick Circuit Royale to like deny the Dorado, the Dribble, or whatever it was, because you had that one in your back pocket. Whereas now it's a little bit more awkward, where it's like almost it feels like most of the map pools, except for maybe that like push / Clash one, like maybe Esperanza, you're kind of actually there's always a bad option if you're a brawl only team. So I feel like I think in my head it hurts brawl teams and rewards like flexible or like teams that can play both brawl and dive. But maybe that's where Overwatch is headed anyway. In general, is just like a push towards flexibility with all of the changes we've discussed.
Yeah, it definitely feels like that.
Yeah. Like before, if you were like a brawl team, like push, you could kind of just get away with any map. You can kind of get away with it. Like Flashpoint Clash, you get like these two things. It's like, oh well, if I just pick King's Row, or I pick like Circuit, it doesn't actually matter how the series goes. I should be able to secure enough brawl maps, whereas maybe that's not true anymore.
I think, to be fair anyway, with the way a lot of these rosters have been constructed, because they've been constructed with hero bans in mind, it feels like this year everyone's really prioritizing flexibility and the ability to play different comps anyway. So it might be one of these things that just, in theory, could be a problem, but the actual specialist teams don't exist to the same degree they maybe did over the last sort of year or two or something. So we don't actually see that play out in reality that much.
I mean, if you want to take the cynic standpoint, I don't know how true this is at the end of the day, but I'm sure all orgs want smaller rosters. Maybe that's some feedback that they gave to the organizers, broadly speaking, that it's like they don't want to pay a bunch of additional players. And I mean, you can see the fact that they reward smaller rosters just in the fact that they only comp a certain number of flights to go to the tournaments and whatnot. You know, they comp, I think, 6 tickets to go to the actual event. So that's 5 players and a coach, manager, whatever it may be. So like maybe that's, a product. Maybe it's just a cost cutting generally because it's expensive to fly more people out. But maybe a part of it is also, like org feedback of saying, like if all of this format rewards having like a fucking 8-man roster every single time, it's not going to work for us because you would have to pay 3 more people. It's just too much.
Well, they reduced roster limit size as well, right? Which seems like, again, like they are moving in that direction.
Yeah, I mean, if you have a big roster, the Blizzard won't even pay for it. So to go to the event.
All right. And then that leads us on to one more big change, which also leads us on to, and this is quite exciting, our first ever sponsored segment. Our good friends of the podcast, FACEIT League, have sponsored us because, of course, with OWCS starting, FACEIT League is also starting. So the signups for Season 4 are now open. And maybe one of the most exciting bits about FACEIT League this season is that it feeds directly into OWCS. So the top division in FACEIT League, the Masters division, if you finish top 2 in that, you get to go into a playoff promotion relegation battle up against the bottom 2 of OWCS, which hopefully won't be too many people on this call that often, but you never know. But I think overall, this is actually a super exciting change, and we've now connected the top of Overwatch to the bottom of Overwatch. It's one big system.
Yeah, I think I think the system itself is much better. I think like the fact that like everything is now like in tune is really nice. I think it's gonna make that. What's the top division called? The Masters. It's actually going to be like really, really hype, like even like the regular season and stuff, because I think that's going to be really significant. Like teams are going to really, really like practice and try for that. Because one thing that will happen is I think you're going to get, like, we're going to talk about a lot of the rosters later, but you're definitely going to get some like good teams miss out on like top 8, and then they're going to be like grinding like through the Masters. And so I think the quality in that division is going to be like, it's actually going to be pretty good this year.
Yeah, I think like the fact that they've taken the top OWCS teams out of it as well is significantly better for actually making the matches interesting. Like, before you would basically have a couple of teams enrolling in Masters to try and, come first, farm the money from OWCS. But now, because it's actually like one continuous system, you're not going to have like your top 2 OWCS team enrolling to farm Masters. Instead, you're going to have people like constantly trying to promote and relegate, and it'll actually be competitive in that bracket rather than just having people enrolling to farm.
Yeah.
And it works out a lot better from a broadcast perspective as well, because now all of a sudden it's not very interesting like we saw last year in OWCS, when maybe you get like the Toronto Defiant are playing the 24th best team in OWCS or something. But now there's going to be this big race to get into OWCS. All these teams are going to be pretty evenly matched. It's going to be an absolute dogfight for it as well. And those promotion relegation games as well are going to be fully broadcast by the main broadcast as well. So if you get that shot, you get that top 2, it's quite literally life or death, right? When was the last time we had a promotion relegation?
Yeah.
Like, maybe never, or like pre-Overwatch League, right? So it's actually super hype fixtures. You get yourself on the main broadcast. So I think it's actually like a really big reason to give it a lot more attention this year.
Yeah. If any players are streaming it as well, that is by far the best thing to watch all season.
Oh yeah.
It's like those promotion relegation matches. You get on like Pax POV on his stream, or like Fefe or something. And you get the live reaction, you get all the comms. It's actually so good. It doesn't get better than that.
And honestly, even last year in FACEIT, we saw quite a lot of success stories anyway. And that would, even where they weren't directly connected, we saw teams like EMEA, Top Dragons team at the time. Some of their first success came in FACEIT League before they sort of popped off in OWCS as well. Teams like Fluffy Aimers, who obviously had that really big stage 4 in OWCS, like again, their first success was in FACEIT League as well. Seems like Radavidity, who also got, I think it was 5th, 6th in stage 4, again, earlier league. I mean, even teams like Virtus Pro, like Virtus Pro's first big result was beating Ents in FACEIT League. So now all of a sudden, this really is like, if you want that step up, that's like the place to go. Another team that of course did well in FACEIT League was Hypnos, who went on to obviously beat SSG on Dive. So in many ways, the first step to beating Chris on Dive is actually the FACEIT League.
That's it. It's actually just one step. That's all you need to do.
Yeah, I think that like before FACEIT League, even if you were winning it essentially, although admittedly previously the people that were winning it were basically just top OWCS teams, now the reward is so disproportionately larger compared to what it was last year. Because now, like, not only do you play in like the promo relegation games, but like once you're promoted into OWCS, because of how they've revamped the main broadcast format and every game is going to be on broadcast, it's not going to be like you promote and then you play one game and you're out of the tournament. You know, every single one of your games in the actual main OWCS tournament will be broadcasted. So your team will play on broadcast a bunch, and any of the new up and comers coming out of FACEIT League will actually get a bunch of airtime rather than just getting like a once-off playoff bracket with the FACEIT League and then never to be seen again.
Yeah, you think last year when we had the group stage, and you'd maybe have some teams get surprising group results, but a lot of the time you would just miss some of that storyline because it's off broadcast. Now the fact that if you make it into OWCS through the FACEIT League system, you get your promotion game, you get that streamed, everyone sees you come up, everyone sees you beat that OWCS team, and then you almost have like a bit of an established reputation as you go into the regular season for like stage 2 and everything. And we should also talk about the other side of it as well, because even though it is the best / only way to get yourself into the top division of Overwatch, there's actually a tier system in FACEIT League as well, and it goes all the way below. So where we have Masters at the top, that connects directly to OWCS, there's also the Expert, Advanced, Open, which means there's different tiers for everyone to play at. So if you are just interested in competing and you're not top of a ladder or anything like this, you just want to find other players around your skill level to play with, there's plenty of opportunities to go and find these games, because I think obviously all of us in this call will agree, but the best way to actually play Overwatch is in a team environment, not just on the rank ladder, but to find people similar skills, similar ambitions, figure stuff out, play as a team, communicate, and actually play against similar strength teams as well.
It's just fun, you know, get some mates, go hop in a tournament, have a good laugh.
I think when I do my community pug nights for the people in my Discord on my stream, they all say it's the most fun way to play Overwatch, and maybe a bit of my delusion will think it's because I'm the best host in the world and I'm so good at hosting. But the reality is, it's because they all get to get sorted into teams, they get to meet people around similar skills, and they get to play together. And now they play together even without the pug nights. And this is the same thing the FACEIT League system provides you. A chance to find people who are around your skill, get in a team together and find opponents and play against them regularly. And of course, all the systems are connected as well. So it's literally relegation promotion between each of these divisions. So you will have those big games. And of course, there's actually prize money in all of these things as well. Every stage this year in FACEIT League will have $50,000 split between the regions and the tiers. So there's prize money for every division, as well as FACEIT League points and everything. So there's actually always something to play for to even get something back in your pocket from it.
Thank you, FACEIT.
Thank you, FACEIT League. And obviously, the best way to play FACEIT League is using our affiliate code, which we'll put on screen somewhere right now. Our register, I don't know where it'll be. Maybe we'll put it everywhere. It'll be somewhere. Click on the affiliate link and you get 20% off your first 3 months, which will get you through that first league of FACEIT League season. So thank you very much to FACEIT League for sponsoring the podcast. And of course, I think even though it's a sponsored segment, I think really the best way to support Overwatch is to support the scene, support the tier 2 scene. Because the healthier the tier 2 scene is, the healthier the game is, the healthier the top scene is. It's all interconnected, and it all is actually a really good thing for the game overall.
Fully agreed.
Inclined to agree.
We'll talk about the partner teams. So some of this is, I guess, still behind closed door information, but there was actually a post from Overwatch yesterday, which maybe gave the game away a little bit, where it talks about the qualification from this open qualifier that is happening this weekend, which will be what will the dates be? It'll be Thursday the 16th up until Sunday the 19th. So that's the OWCS open qualifier. And from that open qualifier, what we get is the top teams join the partner teams in the top 8 of OWCS. Now, in this announcement, it talks about how the top 5 teams in EMEA will join the partner teams in OWCS, but in North America, the top 6 teams from this open qualifier will join the partner teams in North America. Now, some of you might have an abacus or a calculator and have been able to do the math on this one, but that seems to imply very strongly there's going to be 3 partner teams over in EMEA, but only 2 partner teams in North America.
Yeah. It feels like with like how the partnership, like to give like everyone like an idea of like the actual timeline of how it seemed to go. Like I don't really know this, but I'm relatively confident. It's like there was like an application process where orgs would apply to Blizzard, and then Blizzard would filter through, and then there would be almost this like Blizzard says, okay, you guys are the partnership teams, and then the teams will then decide to like accept or decline, and I think there was like been certain factors, like this is what low-key inspired my tweet the other day, is like it feels somewhere that like a lot of teams, like there was, especially at the start, there was a lot of orgs interested. Like I was actually talking to like almost every single big org you could imagine was having conversations. But it feels like somewhere there was like this thing with the partnership program where it's like, if we are a partner, we want to compete. So every team kind of had like player deals ready to go. And then the second they got the tick, they went and started like the signing process. And but what that meant was for certain orgs, they wanted to compete. And then they kind of realized they'd either like missed the boat or they'd been priced out of what like was actually like what they wanted to pay. And then they maybe didn't want to be a partner if they couldn't get like a certain group of players or a certain team. So that's why there was like a lot of rumors of like, that's why Cloud9, I think, did their tweet that they were coming back from the dead. And then seemingly, according to what this blog post is saying, presumably are no longer involved, is I think there is this like, yeah, we want to be involved. And then they look at the reality of the roster signing and the money process, and then they no longer want to go for it. And I think that actually happened on quite a few occasions.
Yeah, I think like with... I think with C9 in particular, maybe it wasn't even that they were necessarily interested in being competitive off rip. Just they saw the reality of how you're rewarded for being competitive once they got like their partnership agreements or whatever. And they thought, shit, this just ain't worthwhile. Because I think Cloud9's MO nowadays is to basically just sign up as like a super low cost organization in all of their esports. But if you're going to be a super low cost organization in like the current partnership program, there is not a lot of reward for you because you need to, deliver competitively in order to get a financial reward for it. And that just means that if you don't sign up right away and sign the best players right away, you just instantly lose out on that.
Like maybe one of the clearest examples of this is what happened in EMEA, because I think a couple of partner teams were locked in immediately. The original third spot was meant to be for Heretics, and Heretics were talking to players, trying to put a roster together. But then what happened, I don't know the exact order of things here, but I think one of the other teams pulled the trigger earlier. So then by the time Heretics got to, all right, we've got our idea for our roster, let's try and sign these players. Players had just gone. They'd signed for other things. And then when Heretics realize we can't have the roster we want, we can't be competitive, suddenly that offer they said they were interested in to be partner is no longer interesting for them and they pull out.
What happened more for them is probably they had like one or two key players that they were trying to get for their roster. And then the salaries got so high with all the Saudi orgs bidding that it was just like they just couldn't. There's no way any org can compete with that kind of money, So they lose the one or two key players, and then they're just like, at that point, they have no sort of vision on what team they want to make, so they have to start from scratch all over again. I think then it might just not be worth anymore.
That's like the difference between EU and NA, is that it feels like in NA, it seems like unless you're a partnership team, there's no one's going to put any money in. But actually in EU, we have a lot of like competition from like Saudi orgs, or even orgs that like are willing to buy an Overwatch roster without being a partner, And I think that led to like, we'll talk about it later, but there's been like a pretty intense salary inflation this year compared to last. And I think it's because you have like the partnership teams who obviously want to spend money because they want a competitive roster, and then Saudi teams who are also wanting a competitive roster. And then obviously the more interested parties, especially when some Saudi orgs obviously have pretty unlimited funds of cash. It did get to a point where if you were that third partner team, you look at it and you think, wow, like to get the roster I want, it's going to cost me this much. But the way I've worked out the money is it's not like I can't do that profitable. So it's like a good situation for players, obviously, because we are like we've effectively benefited from all of this.
Bidding war and the inflation of
But it feels like this is effectively behind the scenes. What's happened is like that's I think similar with like that's effectively. I guess the NRG situation is slightly different, but yeah.
I also feel like
Ents is a good example of this, right?
Yeah, like I was talking to Ents for a while, and I think they were willing to come back, but it was just like once they saw what they realized they were gonna try to offer a player, and then they saw those same players what they already had offers from other orgs. It was just like the reality set in. It was like I'm either gonna like, because that third partner team in EU, like you could easily like get like beaten. Like TU isn't going to be partnered, right? And I think presumably our roster is going to be better the most teams, I'm hoping. And then you just like even the I don't know, fucking
Qadsiah.
Yeah, that like their roster's
get
like
it eventually.
pretty competitive too. So yeah.
Like for the third partner team in Europe, they could have thrown something together for a way lower salary, but it's just like I think players have such high expectations now because everyone knows that the bidding went so high this year that even if you had like one or two offers, you were still going to be asking for a lot of money just because you knew that everyone else was getting a lot of money. But the third team kind of got screwed out of it because there's so many players left, you know.
Because
like, Spark.
To be fair, yeah, that's true. Like Spark,
Spark is not going to team.
Unbelievable.
Like stuff like that is crazy. There are players still left for picking up. You know, like a third org could come in and say, look, here's old salaries. It's nothing like everyone else, but we're the budget team in Europe. We're trying to make things work. I think there is space for it to happen, but every partner team that came in wanted to be a partner team, wanted to build the crazy roster, right? They all wanted to get like Kev or Psycho or all the big names, and then they just got outbid and they were like, oh, let's call it a day. Let's not go for this anymore.
I mean, hasn't it worked? You go.
I was going to say, I think from like a business point of view, for these sort of like smaller orgs that aren't just like your giant organizations with unlimited money, for teams say the size of Heretics, Ents, there's actually so much value in them having a successful team because the way they gain fans and gain attraction is through success. So building a team that can only come fourth or fifth, not qualify for the major event, it doesn't really, suddenly it becomes a much less appealing thing.
It might just not be
rather
worth.
than they can go into another game, a Halo or a Rocket League or something like this, and they can buy a top competitive roster that has a chance at championships and trophies and LAN appearances and all of this for less money than they could in Overwatch. And I feel like it ends up sort of not adding up when you look at like the different options for different game investments.
I mean, when you look at this from like the Euro situation, though, hasn't it just worked out like overwhelmingly positively for the players? Like you're saying, you know, the example of the fact that it's not working for Sparker, but it's like, it's not just that a couple of players are getting paid more, isn't it? Like more people overall are getting paid more. Like from the blog post you can deduce.
I'm not arguing that it's not been good for players.
There's going to be 5 teams in EU paying good money this year, which is definitely more than what it was last time, right? Because there's going to be 3 partner teams, like you can see that from the blog post, and then there's 2 Saudi organizations that are not partnered that are just fucking going in anyway, right?
There'll probably be more Saudi orgs that pop up because
I think so.
Saudi League's still going to be running, so they're still going to be looking to get players there.
I think it's a significantly better example in North America of like how this has happened. Like we haven't talked about North America
I know
right?
less about the NA.
Yeah, I mean, I can talk about the North America stuff way more. And I think that like, you know, in Europe, it looks kind of great. You know, like there's 5 teams that are making really good money. But over in North America, it's a completely different story because there are no Saudi orgs in North America. There's nobody to prop the scene up. You know, you have to be on a partner team or you're just not going to be making any money at all. There are literally no orgs in North America paying anyone any money outside of the partnership program. And it's for the reasons listed before, where it's like the teams that pulled the trigger quickly and signed their rosters really fast when they got the go ahead, they get to sign the competitive rosters. And then if you need to sign like what are perceived as third place leftovers, then already you're not getting bang for buck anymore. Expectations are high. And you don't even necessarily need to pay to people's expectations, right? Because if they're the third place team and they just have nowhere else to go, they'll sign for a nickel and a dime at the end of the day. But the org doesn't get the reward because if they don't feel that they're going to win, they're not going to make the money through the partnership. I think that's very much what's happening in North America, where because they dicked around with Cloud9 and then Cloud9 eventually backed out, they blew it up with NRG, where they didn't offer NRG the slot. Now at this point, like, even if they were to re-offer an organization like NRG, I mean, NRG, it's historically an organization that wants to compete, that consistently does well, right? Like consistent, like Overwatch League champions, they sign a good roster in North America and they do best of anyone in NA at Stockholm. And then you look at what they could do now, and it probably just doesn't really align with what their vision is as an organization. And they've already missed the boat. So now nobody in NA gets paid.
Yeah, because I think you can even look at it, because even from the Toronto situation, right? Before any of the partner stuff really happened, it felt like Toronto had decided they were out this year anyway. So they'd already sort of looked at the numbers and decided it wasn't worth it this year for their partners and sponsors, which is what Adam kind of alluded to on Avril's podcast. So they were kind of out anyway.
I swear, by the way, like I don't have a business degree, but I swear Adam is like this guy's fucking crazy. Because like on the last 2 or 3 years of Overwatch League, Toronto were literally setting money on fire. They were offering so much money, like always to like rosters that would just end up being shit, you know? And then last year, he does the analysis and he figures, yeah, the way that we're going to make money from Overwatch is to do a fucking team house, do visas, sign Korean players on like really like decent like money, like outspend everybody else except maybe Falcons. And now this year, it's like, oh, well, actually, I could do the same thing, but there's a partnership program, so I might actually get some of the money back. He then runs the numbers, decides, nah, I'm not doing it, and then starts setting the bridges alight with Blizzard and saying how shit it is. I don't get it. Like, this guy, I swear, must have lost so much money supporting Overwatch for no reason. And then the one year there was actually like a genuine reason to invest, he decides, nah, maybe he's just a contrarian, you know, he just likes to be different. But I don't know.
My feeling there was that, like, you know, you said like in the final years of Overwatch League, Toronto were big spenders. Like Toronto were mega spenders right from the beginning. You know,
Yeah, that's
like
true.
multi-million
Yeah.
dollar rosters throughout their entire history in the Overwatch League. Like you use last year as an example of how they like kind of continued that trend and spent more than everyone other than Falcons. But from their internal perspective, they would have spent so much less than they would have spent on any given year in the Overwatch League, like a multiple magnitudes less, because they would have been spending so much in Overwatch League every year. You know, the Toronto Defiant was hands down a team that was spending Overwatch League money, Overwatch League winning money every single year to sign their rosters. So I think them continuing that spend for one more year with a kind of wait and see approach, if they've got like passionate ownership about the game, say they cut their spending down to 30% of what it was in Overwatch League, they sign the best roster in North America by a country mile, and then they essentially just find out what's going to happen in the partnership program in the next year, which they probably knew something like this was coming, and they were, you know, they had this ideal that maybe it would be profitable for them in the end, and then they find out the reality of that situation and they're a little bit annoyed. But their annoyance is just like the same ownership that all Overwatch League ownership had. They just dragged it out for another year, right? Like every single Overwatch League owner pulled out when Overwatch League ended. None of the franchises continued.
And even then,
for Toronto
some owners basically pulled out towards the last few years, right? Like you saw like a lot of teams just like realizing
Minimum
where
budget.
like the money is.
Mhm.
It just feels somewhere that like there's been so many poor spending decisions that I don't know, like the fact that he's like, in a way, I almost feel like with Adam, I feel like he's blaming Blizzard, but it's like I'm not a business guy, but I could have told you that you were going to lose money last year, you know, and I could have told you that when you signed all of the, I don't know, the guys from what was the American Tornado and gave them all $10 billion. I could have told you that was also like a losing play, you know. And when you signed Hotba for $4 billion, I could tell you that was a losing play, you know. I don't know. Like I feel, I don't know.
I think
Toronto. You got
go
that.
on.
Nah, you got that.
All right, I was just gonna say, I do think there is a point, you know, because he talks a lot about Team 4 and how Team 4 maybe invest in terms of development times of a product compared to other organizations or other games developers. I think there's a point there, and I think there's definitely a gap, right, between how much Riot and Valorant invest in terms of development time. I think that's all true, right? There is definitely a gap here, and you could do more. But I also feel like there's an element of it kind of just is what it is, right? Like the fact that, like, I don't think Team 4 at any point have really given any indication that this was really their priority, right? Their priority has always been
always the casual
game itself.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, it's always been the game itself. It's never been the esport. Riot has this philosophy, right? They do it with League of Legends. They do it with Valorant. Almost like an esports first, almost, in their marketing and even a lot of their development and their advertising and all of this. So I can sort of say, like, why don't Team 4 do what Valorant do or do what Riot do? There's like a point, right? Like, you know, Blizzard is a rich company. They make profit, blah, 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 blah. Can they? Yeah. But if they've not done it at any point in the past, if they've not done it really with StarCraft or Hearthstone or any of their previous games, it's hard to argue it's surprising, you know, or that, like, why don't they just do it? It'd be more surprising if they just wake up one day and completely change their philosophy and direction towards this. That's like, you know, just kind of praying for a miracle type.
I feel like they tried it, no? Like, Al was their attempt at hard pushing the esport and going away from the casual side. And for them, it just didn't work, right? Like, Owl has got to be a failure for Blizzard, so why would they do it again? Like, why do you expect them to go back and be like, round 2?
the thing about Adam is that it's like he's old guard investment in Overwatch, right? He invested in Overwatch League. And this is like a
Season
fool me
2.
once, fool me twice situation, you know?
Yeah.
Like he already was fooled
Yeah.
once with Overwatch League, and everyone learned from that mistake by pulling out, right? I mean, I think you've got to give like credit to NRG for like adapting to the situation. You know, they pull out and then they come back and they're not spending a $1 billion, right? Like they had not a budget roster, but like a reasonably priced roster for the scene. You know, they weren't spending ridiculous Toronto Defiant money. They were just spending as much money on a roster as was affordable for what was actually being given back out. But in the case of Adam, it's like he'd already been duped by Blizzard once, had 5 years for his time in Overwatch League to see how they approach the game, how they treat the esport. But then he invested heavily in the first season of OWCS, expecting a change. And it's like, how can you see them rip that, like truly gut the product, take it to something that is significantly smaller than what it once was, and then be like, damn, why didn't they meet all of my demands? You know, like you've already reached the point after 5 years of setting money on fire in Overwatch League where it's like you probably should have learned the lesson, you know? 18 other owners in Overwatch League, 19 if you count the Chinese org that disappeared
really
off the
learned
face
that
of the
They
earth.
really learned a lesson.
Yeah.
They were like,
Like everyone
They were
else
the smart
figured it
ones.
out. Yeah, everyone else figured it out. Why didn't Adam in the time provided?
the thing too.
It's actually a love of the game, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's actually a
I
love
mean,
of
it is.
optimism, love of the game. It's actually a love of the
Yeah.
game situation.
But I'm almost certain this is true too, by the way. Like last year, there was a financial incentive to invest in Overwatch. And it's if you were in
PwC.
the EWC partnership program, right? So SSG, when they came in, they were given some sort of money by EWC to buy other teams. So that's where the money they paid as a salary came from the EWC partnership program. NRG, I'm sure we're the same. NRG didn't come into Overwatch at the start. It was once they got the EWC money, they thought, oh, fuck
Yeah.
it, let's get back into Overwatch. So even like exactly what you're saying, Max, where they paid more reasonable salaries than Toronto, not only did they pay more reasonable salaries, they did it with a partnership program and money. I'm sure this is true. I'm sure Koi or whatever the team that Adam did, they didn't get any EWC money. I think they went to EWC, but I'm sure when it came out, they weren't in the partnership program. So I think even the money they were spending, which was still 2, 3, 4x what the other team's doing, they didn't even have any income and they were doing it, you know? At least SSG was taking money from EWC, giving it to us. It was like some sort of like, they probably broke even or made a profit last year on Overwatch just because they were effectively spending free money. I'm sure it's true. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Adam will watch the podcast and come out and flame me. I'm sure it's true Toronto or Koi or whatever his organization weren't in that program. So it was even worse from like a business perspective than what NRG did.
They just fucking love Overwatch. He just loves Overwatch. That's it.
I
He
guess
just loves
so.
competitive Overwatch. Wants to burn some
get
money
it.
on it.
I think one thing that I see too from Adam said it in an interview, and loads of people say it, that pisses me off so much is when he says like, "Oh, look at Valorant. Overwatch could have been Valorant." I fucking hate that because it's not true, right? Like it's just there is a factor of how good is your game to watch, and that's like an unchangeable factor, you know. Like golf is a fucking shit sport to watch, right? Fuck golf, boring shit. You think if you take the Premier League marketing team and you give them golf, they're going to make Premier League numbers? Of course not, because objectively, from a human condition, football is so much more fun to watch than golf. It's just a fact. And golf can never compete with football, no matter how many insane Team 4 stuff they do. Overwatch is the same. Overwatch could never, will never compete with League of Legends. Even if Blizzard sink their entire net worth into promotion of the Overwatch League, lose 10 billion, because League of Legends, objectively, is fucking fun to watch, right? Like the game itself is set up where you can see every single action. There is like high stakes moment. Valorant is a copy of CS, which again was the same. This was just an objectively brilliant esports to watch. It always has been, you know? So the reason Valorant is more successful than Overwatch League, I also think Valorant's maybe dipping off is what I heard when I was talking to the common folk. But the reason it's successful is because it's so much easier to watch Valorant than Overwatch, right? And there is no amount of like Blizzard mishandling that I think fixes the Overwatch League. I think they just were spending money that the game could never attract viewership-wise just because it wasn't good enough. And I really, really think that somewhere, like some games, like Rocket League is never going to be that big because Rocket League is just a bit fucking weird to watch, you know? No offense to all the Rocket League heads out there. And I feel like that's just like a reality that no one ever talks about. Everyone assumes that every game is the same, and it's just how well the company does at pushing it is how successful it is.
If
Overwatch is
the
a casual
viewership,
game. Simple.
if a viewership was going to pop off, Overwatch League Season 1 and 2 would have been that moment. Because that's when it was premiere production, premiere everything, the biggest casting talent, all of this, the biggest production, live studio show every week, blah, 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 blah. But the viewership wasn't crazy. It's not like it was suddenly, oh yeah, we're now as big as League of Legends, or we're now as big as Counter-Strike or anything. Like, obviously it fell off, and they couldn't keep up with the spending, etc. But if there was a point for it to, like, jump out and become a premier esport, that was the moment. And if it didn't do it then, well, it's probably not going to do it now.
Yeah.
Also, I guess a side note, Koi were in the partnership program.
Cheers to me. Cheers to me.
So, but it means, because if you look at the teams that were in Overwatch, and there's like, you can see with the orgs we had last year, Fnatic in the partnership program, Gaming Gladiators in the partnership program, Koi in the partnership program, NRG, Twisted Minds, TSM, Falcons, Virtus Pro, SSG. There's significant overlap here, right, with the orgs we saw last year and the Esports World Cup partnership program.
Yeah.
Am I cooked? I swear someone told me when they got announced. I don't know. I'm sorry, Adam. That was on me. That was a bit of misinformation I was spreading there. I'll hold my hands up. You still spent too much though between you and me.
Yeah, I feel like every other team paid almost identical salaries in the Esports World Cup.
Yeah, every team was getting it was between 1.5 and 2.5, right? Like I think there was like very few players above that, and then probably Falcons. I'm guessing. I don't know what Crazy Raccoon got paid, but Toronto was like, especially if you consider like the costs of like housing and feeding everyone, they were like
they're way above the average.
It's like 4 or 5x what SSG paid, you know?
Yeah.
I think there was something where like with the housing, the Toronto players and staff had like two options with their contract, where they could either get a higher salary, or they could get a higher prize pool cut but no team house, or they could get a team house in exchange for X percentage of their prize pool cut. And they all opted
it still
for
can't be
the
worse.
Team house.
That's an outrageously bad deal, right? Like, there's no way team house, like, even if you give 100% prize pool, you're not gonna make your team house money back.
Yeah, you have
you subsidize a bit of it, essentially, right? You subsidize a bit of it.
I mean, they came second at EWC. You know, maybe it's a more significant number than you realize. But you know,
I mean, they're actually gutted, right? After coming second at EWC, then going, oh yeah, we sacrificed a bit more of our prize pool for this house. Damn it.
Yeah.
I think they're all happy living in Toronto, just quietly.
But yeah, so I guess all things said on Toronto, maybe at least their situation was quite straightforward, right? I think they applied to the partnership program as in a like sign up for the newsletter, let us know what's going on, and we'll make a decision. But their decision was just a straight up, no, thank you, not interested. The NRG Cloud9 situation is where we maybe enter the controversy of it all. So, from what I understand, both teams applied. Both teams said they were interested, and then once Blizzard get all these applications, they have to pick their top three, right? They pick their top three. They send applications out to two of the teams, which was just straightforward. Yes, they accepted, no problem. They sent one out to Cloud9, at which point Cloud9 say, actually, it's not for us. And NRG is the team who doesn't get invited to the party, doesn't get invited, at which point NRG get, as maybe understandably, thoroughly upset, right? And I think we've got the tweet somewhere, but Andy Miller then sort of goes off on Twitter sort of talking about how they feel pretty wronged by the whole situation.
I feel like that's
fair. Yeah, I don't know, like
I think there's two parts of it, right? Because I think when these rumors were first out, there was a lot of controversy of like, how the fuck have Cloud9 been picked over NRG? Blah, 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 blah. But I don't think that actual decision is that outrageous. I think Cloud9 are a pretty established organization, a pretty big organization. I think it would be true. It would be true that Cloud9 would be a good enough organization for a partnership program, and so would NRG. Like they both qualify,
what are the other ones, you know?
Exactly. But I think Cloud9 are big enough. So the idea to pick Cloud9, who have like a big history in esports, establishment in a lot of like bigger games like League of Legends and stuff, seems quite reasonable. I think where Blizzard actually fucked up was they needed to have, like, I guess, better conversations with Cloud9 to actually be sure they were going to say yes when they offered it, right? Because I think even though there's an offer stage, I feel like they should be in conversation with the orgs. Now, by the time you send the official email of a contract, you know they're going to say yes, essentially. You know what I mean? There's no surprises in that contract.
Yeah.
There's no backing out last minute. Because if they had that conversation with Cloud9 and Cloud9 were like, actually, it's not for us, they never send the offer to Cloud9. They just send it to NRG. NRG never get upset. And we get 3 partner teams in North America.
Yeah. I think, I don't know. To be honest, I don't know. Does anyone know? Did Cloud9 talk to a single player at all?
Yeah. Cloud9, like, they didn't do anything. Like, the way that you described the time frame there, where it was like, they offered Cloud9 the slot and then Cloud9 is like, no. There was like more than a week between Cloud9 being offered the slot and Cloud9 saying no. Because the way that it went was teams got their partnership offers, and before they had their partnership offers, they'd made conditional offers to rosters, Like, all of the teams that thought they were going to get in, they had made conditional rosters to offers, NRG included, because NRG thought they were going to get in. And then the 2 teams that got in received their invites. NRG did not. NRG waited like a day, and it was basically like, well, we're going to pull all your conditional offers because it's not possible to do it anymore. Like, you can't, we can't sign you if we're not in the program. And then Cloud9 didn't contact anybody for like multiple days. And then like people started floating Cloud9 people's Discord tags just in group chats and stuff like that. And then it was like, people started reaching out proactively to Cloud9 because people had heard through the org ownership that Cloud9 had received the offer, but Cloud9 hadn't done anything to actually reach out and sign players. And I think they met with like 1 roster at most, and then eventually just decided, nah, it's not for us, Like they might have had like 1 meeting with 1 MA roster at most, and then pulled the plug after like more than a week of just being like, yeah, we're in, but we're going to take it slow, wait until after Christmas, wait until the new year, and then sign people for cheap. Because that is basically Cloud9's MO, is we'll just sign you cheap after everything's said and done. But I guess they waited that week over the Christmas break where they were probably closed, and then cited the partnership agreement properly and thought, yeah, this just isn't worth it to sign a low-cost roster.
And then the ironic thing is those conditional offers that NRG had, even if you go back to NRG and re-offer them the slot, all of the players that they were wanting have all gone to the other 2 teams. So NRG's now in a situation it's like, well, fuck. Like, everything that we had planned is now completely fucked because of this delay. So then
It's
NRG,
like a
I guess,
situation.
they then don't become like an option anymore. And then there's just like this kind of like this situation where everybody's lost out.
And this is bad in multiple ways, because not only did it completely screw a third team in North America out of getting paid, it actually drove down salaries in North America. Because when it was known that Cloud9 was going to be the 3rd slot, immediately it drove down any expectations for the other teams to pay more. So it actually like drove average salaries in North America down, because NRG's conditional offer would have pushed everything higher for everyone and made everything more competitive. So the players in the partner teams, just in NA, the 2 would have been paid more. But as a result of what happened, the average salaries actually got pushed down for North American players. So in EU, you had like I don't know if you call it healthy, but I guess it's healthy for the players and the coaches because they get paid more. Because in EU, there was so much competition that people got paid. In North America, there was 0 competition. There was just 1 really high spending roster and then the rest. And if there's only one other team for the rest, then everything gets pushed down. So it's not just that the 3rd place team doesn't get paid. Everyone doesn't get paid as much.
Yeah, I think the big thing here, still for me, is like it's less about which orgs were involved and more just the fact that the relationship management was mishandled so much that they managed to offer a team that didn't actually want it, and then the team that did want it is jilted essentially at the altar, and then is pissed off that they've been jilted, and then just pull everything out immediately, and then the whole of North America then suffers as a result.
Yep, and all the fans
like a
are
bad
sad
year
too,
for
because
NA. Only 2 teams, no LAN.
Yes,
It's a disaster.
Sucks to be American.
Yeah.
All right. Then I guess some of the other stuff we wanted to touch on. Obviously, there's been a lot of leaks going around. There's been a few people who have seemed to have positioned themselves at the front of the grapevine or the end of a grapevine. I don't really know which end you want to be of the grapevine to get the information, but they've been spreading the rumors, spreading the leaks. Have you got something, Max?
I was going to say, we didn't talk about Crusty going to Gen.G. We didn't talk about how the Falcons coaching staff has disappeared.
Oh, we'll get into
Rosters
the
are late
team.
to know.
We get into
we're
the
circling.
team rosters.
We
Okay,
got all
right,
that
we
names,
rescheduled. Okay, all right.
We changed the order. We changed the order on the fly.
There's a missed input.
So a lot of leaks going around. So I thought we should do some things just to maybe clarify a few of the leaks. I feel like we've clarified a lot of the maybe misinformation coming from the leaks by talking about the partner stuff for just then. Because I feel like a lot of the leaks that were coming out with partner stuff were just kind of neither here nor there, just names being thrown around, not a lot of verified information. But there's a few others that I think are worth clarifying now that like we've got either the real information or we can just dispel. One of the biggest ones was probably a tweet that went out claiming that players are now earning Overwatch League salaries again, which I mean,
players.
Yeah, but
it's
even
like-
then, Overwatch League, it's like close to minimum Overwatch League.
Yeah.
It's like the
And also-
big dog, like no one's on coffee money,
No,
Yeah.
no one's anywhere near that amount of money.
Yeah, no.
And also, you got to bear in mind for Overwatch League as well, everyone had a team house, or like the vast majority of teams, team house, fully covered food and expenses and all of this, which is actually worth so much, right? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
People who have to pay their own rent, their own mortgage, buy their own food, pay their own bills, will realize how much money they would have from their job if they didn't have to pay these things all of a sudden, for like 8 months of the year. So I think the idea that any of these salaries are even remotely close to even like anything like that, even because a lot of the minimum salary teams in Overwatch League still had a team house, which means the
No living
salaries are just,
expenses.
sorry to burst the bubble here, but it's just really not comparable. There's probably a couple of players, some key players on the right orgs at the right time that have maybe got like pretty high salaries, but we're talking like a couple of individuals in the world rather than
A few people above our minimum in Europe.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, which wasn't the case last year. It's like no one was
Yeah.
anywhere near last year.
It's
So I
definitely
think
way up.
salaries for sure have gone way up, and I think especially if you're one of the lucky like big dogs, it's gone way up. But Overwatch League money is like a pretty big stretch, I think.
It was another level.
Yeah,
I think we'll never
Yeah,
get
but-
back to that.
no.
If you're making like 60K with no housing, you're one of like 3 players in the fucking world at this point. So
Yeah.
Or you're on
Falcons.
Falcons. Yeah, or-
Yeah.
or you're-
Yeah.
or you're on Falcons.
Yeah, maybe Falcons might be the exception to this, right? That's like
Yeah.
exception
might
to
be-
every
might be-
rule.
Yeah.
Let's just be intentionally blind to Falcons because it's not really fair to use them as a comparison point. They paid Simple $1 million to not qualify online. So, let's-
So yeah, in terms of other leaks, I don't know if there was a lot of stuff that came about rosters that have just been disproven. I think we'll probably talk about it maybe a bit more in our client of the week section,
Yeah.
not to spoil
We've
that
got a
section
lot to
completely, because that's when we'll talk about it in proper. But I think in terms of that one, to me felt like one of the big egregious ones. And these are the ones, again, not to start client of the week now, but these are the ones that annoy me when it's like, it's misinformation that changes the community perception all of a sudden. It's like this Overwatch League salary one, like, oh, everyone's on Overwatch League salaries, like fucking set off for fireworks, celebrate, we're fucking back, guys. And it's like, by the way, it's also not true, like just misinformation, gives people false expectations as well, false everything. But we'll get onto that more later. I guess one other myth we can bust right now is one of a leak from Seeker's Gay Lover, who said FlyQuest or Nightmare for the 3rd NA spot. Seems like this one isn't going to quite hold the water after the quick maths test of partner
That
teams.
was me
in,
thinking Seeker's gay level was in the know, but I never bubbled this.
I mean,
If
I'd
only
heard
Go on.
many a murmur about FlyQuest being offered the spot. I heard the way that all went down was, Cloud9 got their offer and then NRG potentially got re-offered or something like that. But the bridge was already burned. Mr. Owner, what is it, Andy Miller had already, tweeted that Blizzard
The
should
bridge was on fire.
Blizzard
It
should
was
all burn.
ablaze.
So yeah, nobody wanted to walk over that burning bridge. And then I heard that potentially FlyQuest was going to be that third org, but I'm not sure whether it just didn't happen or whether FlyQuest did a Cloud9 and saw the nature of the deal and decided to back down from it. But yeah, not too sure.
Yeah, I think we'll probably end up talking about the North American teams more when we do our episode next week, because we'll do another episode relatively soon. We'll do everything that's basically announced now, and then we'll do another episode catching all the other stuff. But I think once we have all the North American stuff, we can maybe fill in also some of the blanks there as well, on maybe why it wasn't as appealing for some of from that third partner team potentially. But one region hasn't wasted any time announcing their rosters, and that is EMEA, including, of course, our very special guest, Astro, announced on the Twisted Minds roster. And this is... I mean, on paper, the roster seems pretty good. I don't know if many people anticipated this exact combination of players, like some of SSG's best components fused with Yubi and Quartz from TM. And then maybe the oddest part of the entire roster that maybe I think nobody saw coming was the import slot being spent on Irony to come in and film this flex support role. So I don't know if
I think our roster makes so much sense fusing TM and the SSG, the three of me, Hattie, and Psycho. Like, it slots almost perfectly. Yubi fills the same role that Backbone filled, essentially. And then Quartz is just like a cracked hit scan. It's pretty much the same sort of roster style that we had on SSG.
It makes sense. I just don't think people would have expected it, if you know what I mean. Like, people wouldn't have seen the fusion coming.
Yeah.
Before we get too stuck into roster discussion, can we just have a brief moment to discuss the fact that whenever a Saudi organization announces a roster, they always make their Saudi players twice as large in the graphic as the rest of them? It's like, Astro, you are lesser. I remember they did this with Falcons did this with Majed last year as well, where it was Majed towering over this championship roster that's going to carry him to a chip. They've done it again. Quartz and Yubi are just twice the size of you. 3 times for Quartz. What is this? Why do they do this? It's actually insane. I get that their fans are Saudi, but is it not wildly disrespectful to the players to just shrink them down and be like, yeah, dude, you're a third of what Quartz is?
No comment.
No comment.
All right, now let's talk about Irony. Now let's talk about Irony on this roster.
Who's also a third of Quartz in this ratio.
Yeah.
Irony's a
is
little
his
bigger.
face just like AI? Have they done something there? It's a very small screen I'm on right now, but it's just it looks like they've done something there with that picture. It looks like he's a little too smooth. I know the Koreans love a little bit of cosmetic surgery, but if they've done that with a surgeon's knife, I would be astounded.
We're getting the close up now.
Yeah, cried. It's like an actual AI picture.
It doesn't look like a photo, does it? At all.
No, that is AI for sure. He's probably got a 6th finger somewhere on that hand on his face. There's just no way.
I mean,
So what's Irony doing on this roster?
Well, we needed to find a flex support, and the problem is in Europe there's a couple, but someone else on this fucking podcast already nabbed one of them real quick. And then yeah. So you might have got the first pick of flex support. And then obviously we have an import slot to spend, and getting a Korean flex support is just the classic, Europe doesn't really have any.
Yeah,
it's always going to be the best slot to get an import on.
Yeah, this season, everyone was we're using import slots. Every org had 2 imports, and I think everyone wanted the Korean main tank. That was the thing. Everyone was
yeah.
But then actually, you had every NA team, EU team. There was this market of everybody wants fucking Dong Hak or Kellen or something. And it was just there was way too much demand and not enough supply. So then I think you're right. I think the next position for European teams is always going to be the supports. I think the EU DPS talent level is really high. I think obviously Quartz, Psycho, Kev, Kai, Spark. I feel actually there you have genuinely Korean level DPS players. I think, if we can use such a word as Korean level on this podcast. So I think it makes sense to fill out your the slots in tank and support.
Yeah, I mean, I actually don't know too much about Irony, about whether he can speak English or not. So that's a fun bridge we'll have to cross later. But he's in Saudi now, so we'll be playing on low ping, and then hopefully he'll be having a great time chatting English with a bunch of people with random different accents that he can't understand.
On the topic of having a great time, is there anyone else there in Saudi with him?
I think so. I don't know for sure.
That sounds like a great time, to be honest.
That is gonna be good.
I mean, we all loved our time in Riyadh for the Esports World Cup, and I can only imagine that his experience will be exactly the same as that.
Yes.
Recommend him the Cheesecake Factory.
Yeah. Fuck me up, to be honest.
Love the Cheesecake Factory.
I heard the Raising Cane's is delectable, right next to the Hilton, which is surely where they'll keep him for the whole year.
Who knows, mate? Not my job.
But I think all things considered, Irony's the biggest question mark for sure, I think, because everyone else is just like an established pro. We've seen what they can do at OWCS. Don't think we'll get too many surprises. Feels like relatively fine, like hero ban wise as well in terms of flexibility. It's just like whether Irony delivers. Because like honestly, last year, not convinced by Irony and Irony's time on. Was it Fnatic at the time? He was with Bliss on Fnatic, right?
Actually, don't know. Don't ask me.
No clue.
I think that's true.
I can look it up right now.
That backline,
Yeah, it was on Fnatic.
I felt like they didn't look good, right? They didn't look good. But also, I was pretty convinced both of them were frauds. And then Bliss goes on to actually play pretty well for Twisted Minds in the latter half of the year, right?
It's just a Fnatic problem.
It was a Fnatic problem, right?
My understanding is you can never go wrong.
Maybe.
You can never go wrong with a Korean flex support, especially when the competition is European.
Babs.
Oh yeah.
Not sure what experience you're referring to, given you were directly experiencing it in 2023. But go on, Daniel.
The years cover a lot.
Would there have been a better European in those scenarios? Would there have been any European who would have done a better job?
I could have got Skyle in, something like that. Look at the last KDG picture just on rip.
That's ready to go, actually.
Got that one preloaded just in case.
I was hunting for this picture recently because a lot of the people in my Discord didn't seem to know the story of psychologically torturing Lastro with a picture of his abusive coach. But it's good that we've resurfaced it so quickly. You're doing God's work, Alpha.
This is an all-time classic.
That's so
the mental boomer, man. Very
crazy that he like fully bombed out of the roster and left after that. Like,
I mean, there was a Maple Story double XP weekend, so yeah.
I mean, that weekend lined up perfectly with the Valiant game, is my understanding.
I can't go wrong with the Korean flex support.
Literally never happened. How many games did Irony win on Vegas Eternal?
Was he on Vegas?
Mate, how do you know where these players have played it? Actually,
It's crazy how you're so attentionally blind to the players. No wonder you can't fucking scout anyone, Chris.
I mean, it's true, actually. You're actually right.
Wait.
I mean, when you're in Europe, there's like the same 20 people over and over again, and you don't need to scout anyone.
He's good.
I'm on Irony's Liquipedia. Alpha, I don't know if you can bring it up quickly, but Irony's Liquipedia, the picture actually looks the picture looks like the picture they use on the announcement. So maybe he does just look like this.
No, he's in a Chinese jersey. It's Chinese makeup.
Yeah, the best makeup.
Scroll down, there's
And at least his skin has some texture there. Like, there's no defending the AI picture. Like, there's no way you're trying to argue that
if you go back on the Liquipedia, scroll down, there's another picture that I think it might be the one they used.
Which one?
From Billy Gaming, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. He does have very smooth skin.
He's just got that Korean look to him, you know? They look good as
all natural
skincare. He's there with 8 different serums every morning.
Now you can send us to FunnyAstro and it'll have some English something English to watch and learn.
3 hours of English homework. Watch the Uncoachable podcast.
When you can understand the entire episode, you're ready. Yeah.
Just ask him for the originally submitted, mate. We need to do a compare the pair.
But I think overall expectations for this roster probably are they're going to be one of their like top 2 in the region, right?
One, I'd say.
I'd say second place.
I'm definitely going top one.
I was thinking third.
Ooh, hot take.
Ooh.
Soon.
Yeah, I feel like soon. No, wait, who wins though? Soon or you?
It's actually a clash of the Titans if we're honest.
If
we're just going to be drawing out O's on stage.
The crowd's going to be crazy. We'll get obviously onto the big announcement from France, but I guess the other roster that goes maybe hand in hand with Twisted Minds, maybe expected to be their biggest rival, is of course the Ultimates, which is Chrissy's team, which is
Look at everyone evenly on the announcement. Everyone's the same, you know. That's what type of
You've
team
got Kev
we're
at the
gonna
front
be,
though,
know?
don't you?
Yeah, but we should. By the logic, is KSA should be like the big dog, but he's just, you know, he's part of the team. You know.
Well, are we going to
breaking
talk?
the
Are we going to talk
stereotype.
about Chrissy's roster selections here?
Yeah, let's go for
Yeah.
it. Break it down.
Yeah. Because I mean, you know, we were picking on Irony briefly for his results on Vegas Eternal, but I am wondering about, you know, the controversial decision to pick up a 1-year retired flex support that only plays Ana that got benched in the Ana meta.
It's a controversial take, but I think with the Koreans, I think like we really looked at like players that I think are really good at heroes where maybe like most of the European supports aren't that good, and had played in like mixed teams before. Like I think a big reason like I really wanted Faith was because I felt like Faith had so much time on like mixed teams, and even Twilight, I think his English is way better than a lot of like if you went for like Simple or one of like the young up and comers, maybe there's like a risk to reward ratio. But you know, like my philosophy when it comes to these things is very different to yours, you know, Max. Like I always really like a piece that's gonna like maybe be able to like fit the team and work and communicate as opposed to just like young raw talent. And I feel similar with Twilight is especially if you use him properly, if he does reach his peaks, then he was unbelievably elite like back when he used to play, you know.
Yeah, he was like
years ago.
definitely top three Ana in the world back
Yeah.
when Jesus was
Yeah.
a boy.
Yeah.
But then, so I think there's like, Twilight proves its own risk, but I also think somewhere that, you know, like he's a veteran, you know what you're going to get. Like, I think his English levels are going to be good. Like at the heroes he's good at, he's really good. So I'm really optimistic about it.
Moving to
I
Saudi.
do feel like
Yes,
you answer
yeah,
that
but
first.
we're gonna do both. So Faith is already in Saudi, and Twilight's coming in like the next like week or two. He's just got like 1 or 2 things to sort out before he comes. But they're gonna partner up in the TU facility.
I do wonder sometimes with a player like Twilight, you know, maybe if Hazard just remains incredibly broken meta throughout the whole year, it can pay dividends. But, you know, often like your Ana players, they wind up being tethered to another player too, right? It's like you're subbing in your Ana player. Sure, you sub in your Ana player, you can protect ban support so that he can still play Ana. But you're also going to have shown what you're intending to play because you're going to have to sub in a tank player too, right? So like you can target ban both tank and support when you sub in a player like that. So I think that having a specialized player like that, when you've got 2 tanks, like having 3 supports and 2 tanks in this current format is extremely punishing because you can't protect ban 2 players at once. So I do feel like Twilight's biggest strength, obviously, it's Ana. If you have an Ana meta all throughout the year, you're laughing. You know, I say that it's back when Jesus was a boy. I mean, it wasn't just back when Jesus was a boy. Like in 2023, he was a freak too. Like he's really, really good at Ana. And players like this, like it doesn't matter if you give them time off. You put them back in, he's still going to be good at Ana because he's only ever been fucking good at Ana. So he'll just keep doing that. But I do think that for you, you've got like a unique problem in the sense that you have 2 tanks and 3 supports. So no matter what you do, your plan is going to be somewhat telegraphed. And I feel like the only way you can fully utilize him is with, you know, a protect ban. And you can't do that for both.
Yeah, well, I don't think Chase by any stretch, like if Chase is out that time, I mean, there's no way that like he can only play Winston. So I think actually like the tank ban is what it is. I also think there's like, I don't know, we'll see. It remains to be seen. But my feeling is that like Twilight isn't only Ana, you know? I think he's played a lot experience like in the past. Like if he has to play like a map of like Kyria, I'm really confident he's going to be fine on it. But I guess we got to see once he kind of like gets into scrims and gets warmed up and stuff, you know?
It depends too. If like, you know how we talked about how Astro now has a situation where he can't get target banned in the same way? Because if they ban Lucio, he plays Juno and vice versa, right? If now with Hazard, if you ban Winston, well, I'll just play Hazard instead or something. And you can still do
there's so
it's
many
still effective
heroes.
at the same things. That it's the same thing that Juno has done for Lucio. Does Hazard do the same thing for Winston on some of these like dive maps?
Yeah, I think as long as Hazard stays broken, it is sort of like a non-issue because Anna pairs very, very well with that.
Need Hazard nerfed into the ground, and then your roster will be fucked.
Well, let's see, mate. Let's fucking see.
Be
Look
great.
at
I love that
shit-eating
moment.
grin. Astro's so happy realizing all the consequences of Chrissy's roster decisions. Like,
And I get to
Wow.
watch it from the outside and judge you for everything.
Yeah, that's fine, mate. But when
That's
Irony
prime
retires
position.
after 4 days, and then Yubi's telling you to kill yourself, we'll see who's laughing. You know.
It's fine, mate.
I mean,
We'll just get
genuinely-
another one. We'll just get another Korean flex support. Just pop them over. No problem. Don't go
just
wrong with a
looking from
Korean
that
flex
announcement
support.
picture, it's like Yubi must be like a deity to you, right? You know, he's like at least 2 times as large as you. So if he tells you to kill yourself, you might actually have to do it. It's like a voice from above telling you to do it.
Yeah, I will be listening to UB. We'll be
That's not an
following what
option,
he
mate.
says.
It's in the contract.
Conflict diverse.
I do
The other
from
thing
everything.
the other thing with your roster, Chrissy, as well, is obviously you've gone 2 tanks, 3 supports, so you've only got 2 DPS players, and we're coming off the back of a year where flex DPS was more prevalent than it's ever been, like double flex DPS comps. But your hit scan is Kai, who's famously, I think when Venture first came out and I asked Kai, "You playing the new hero?" He goes, "Not for me." So
in scrims,
maybe not
in
Mr.
scrims,
Flexible, but yeah.
When Kai needs to, he's been flexing a K. And what I'll tell you about Kai
Oh, yeah?
is he has the worst Pharah I've ever seen out of anybody in human history.
Don't say that about the Predator missile. Don't say that.
Mate, he retook on Pharah.
Oh, it's
yesterday in
always the
scrims, right?
fucking retake.
It's
on
always the
Fire,
retake.
man.
Happy-
Oh,
fuck.
it's
No,
years of
you
it.
Need to, you need to know this. It's so good. It's first point, route 66. Okay, so we're defending. So he retakes back out like they're about to cap.
Great
route
Farah
first.
point.
Okay, and he doesn't go like up on the high ground and fly. He fires through missiles, and then he spends 20 seconds going underneath bottom right tunnels to just immediately get fucking scouted and die. Didn't do a single piece of damage on the retake. I was like, surely the most basic knowledge of Farah is high ground, sky, good, tunnels, not good. But he sees it differently, you know? But I think, I don't know, we'll see. My
You're
feeling
already
is
selling
that
it right now.
yeah, I think hit scan is actually really finding hero bans. Like, I really don't think it's like easy to ban out. I also think his Tracer and his Reaper are going to be fine in those situations. So
Are you
I
not
really,
scared
really-
of like Venture Gen.G comps? Because they were meta
No,
for a
'cause-
lot of this year.
But I think in hero bans, I think 2 flex is way easier to ban the 2 flex than it is to ban a hit scan, because hit scan ban is always such a waste. There's always so many options, you know.
Yeah.
And like the thing with what I think at least is double flex comps take a lot of like synergy and like strategy, and like you need like the Amalgameta took a lot to get that working. Whereas hit scan, it never like, and in hero bans where you can't just practice one comp, you have to practice everything. Hit scan is so good because you just play hit scan and you just fucking shoot people. And I think, yeah, I don't know. My feeling is that like our DPS isn't going to be even remotely a problem for hero bans. But when EXO exploit it and knock us out, and I get the force, we'll be laughing then, you know.
All right.
55 minutes, guys. Okay, so we go really.
We got
Okay,
heaps of
actually-
time, dude. Heaps of time.
All right.
Right.
Then
Do you mind if I go
We
check
should-
the ball real quick?
you go check the ball, mate.
You go check, mate. We'll talk. You go check. Check the ball.
I just thought I heard the death cry of a cow. So
Mate, you're not going to bring it back to life, so it is what it is. You know? It's Schrodinger's cow. It's either dead or it's not, you know. But like,
it's like
nothing you can do.
cows. They're herd animals. You know, one does it, they all do it. So I'm a little worried about a domino effect here.
I'm so excited to see 20 dead cows after Uncoachable. Cheers to that.
I'm googling how long can cows live without water.
Ages, man, ages.
It's
It'll be
at least
fine.
55 minutes. You'll be all right.
Yeah.
So
2 days? Oh my god!
How long's it been?
Multiple.
Hey, listen, it's fucked. It's in God's hands now.
I was in America for 2 extra days, man.
Cats are probably fucking raging about that.
So, I've got no way to segue from this, so I'll just move. To round out our trio of Saudi organizations, we've got Qadsiah, which I think I'm saying right, which is, of course, this is maybe the most surprising team in terms of announcements. This is a team of Tread, Checkmate, Landon, Lubda, QLM, and Haku. So QLM, Haku, and Lubda are the three Saudi players, which obviously gives them access to the Saudi E-Leagues and such. They do also have Ziad on the roster as well, who I don't know how much they'll use him in OWCS, but he'll be playing in Saudi E-League, so they have the right number of spots, you know.
Who makes
this
these rosters?
This is a really bizarre roster, right? Because
Yeah.
Checkmate, good player. Landon, good player. Haku won the World Cup. I'll cop it, right? Tread, like an okay player. I think like a pretty solid year in terms of his first sort of year in, I guess, like what do you call like top flight. QLM, obviously a gamble. Lubda, I mean, he's good at Farah for sure. Can guarantee you that. But a really weird roster. And obviously, maybe the weirdest part, Junkbuck is the coach of all of this.
I mean, that's fucking crazy. Like, that's the crazy.
No,
bit
I have big
Go on.
thoughts on this roster, to be honest. Like,
Okay.
I heard what Al-Qad was doing early on, and I thought this is just going to be like a blatant cash grab roster, you know? I heard like early on that they were tacking on to Landon and Checkers, and I thought, okay, these guys, they're just going to cash a big Saudi check, because this is a high-paying team. They're going to cash a big Saudi check, and it's just going to be a dog shit roster beyond that, and these guys are just going to get pumped all year long, and they're just going to cash their check. But as I saw the roster actually announced, I thought, shit, this is actually like potentially a really competitive, like a really competitive team. Like you said, QLM was a question mark. I think QLM is really good. I think QLM is like one of like the most slept on players in EMEA, to be honest. I think he's actually like really solid. I remember seeing Saudi E-Leagues 23, like at the end, QLM was like the only reason that team was, I think it was F16. Like he was actually like really, really good, like on land, no less. So I think QLM, like a really good slept on player. Haku, I think he's like so-so. I think he's probably the weakest player on that roster. Tread as well. He's like the next up tank, right? Chase was Mr. Next Up. Tread is like behind him. Tread had a really good year. And then they secured Junkbuck as well. And I mean, all of the rumors around Junkbuck in the offseason was that, you know, he was asking like a huge price for his services. And then he's gone to a Saudi team, which we know, or, you know, I guess we in the call know, and now our viewers know, actually pays a lot. And I think the way that it's all shaped out, they've wound up with like a really good roster. Like Checkers, Landon, QLM, Tread. I think that's like an insane core. Haku, you know, he won the World Cup. I think he's still got a bit to prove. I think he's still like kind of in the middle in terms of the support selections, even for the Saudi side of things. But the rest of the roster is really good. They've got like a world-class coach. I think this team will like, I mean, I think they'll surprise in terms of their results. I mean, I genuinely think it's a really competitive team. It could be really solid.
I don't think they can get to LAN. I don't think they can get top 2.
I think they are good, but I agree. Like,
yeah, they're definitely good.
Like, surely any like roster flexibility issues you've got with like our rosters, this roster also has, right? Like there is definitely like, I guess like support and then maybe like tank, like hero pool problems. But I agree. I think considering like where they could have been, I think they've done a really good job with this roster. I think Libda's playing a lot of hit scan too. That's what I'll tell you. And actually, he's fucking good at it. Like actually, I'm genuinely like Libda next up believer. You know?
Didn't he also play support? Kind of just
he won the World Cup on that, mate. He won the World Cup.
Yeah, honestly, I think he's actually way more flexible, and he's young, and I think he's pretty good. I'm actually like low-key like a Libda fan. But I agree with Max. I think this roster, like the fact they got Junkbuck is fucking crazy. Because how the fuck could like?
Yeah.
I think if you ask me to say who's the best coach in the league, I actually think it is Junkbuck. I think he's the number one. So I think the fact he ended up here is good. I just wonder if it'll end up like Rock last year, where on paper it looks good, and then once things start to go wrong, people just start to kind of like rein it in and accept the salary, you know.
I think this roster is way better than Rock's. I think
but
just on paper, it's like way ahead, right?
Yeah, but we wouldn't have said that last year, maybe, because last year it was like, oh, Checkmate Izzyaki, that's good. TVNT, he looks really good, like he's next up. Like Rojo, we really rated him. Like I feel like when we would have described Rock at the start of last season, you maybe would have given them like similar levels of like hope.
True.
And I think that like
who was their main support back then?
Oh,
it was
AOI.
Because
Oi and
I
Izzy
thought
Aki,
Oi was better than
Yeah, than
Haku,
Haku.
to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that roster was actually really good on paper too, to be honest. Like Rojo was probably like rated higher than QLM a lot of
Probably,
the
yeah.
time
At
too.
the
People
time,
thought,
yeah.
people always called Rojo mini quartz back then. I don't know if he's lost that title in the past year.
I think he
But
has.
Rojo was mini quartz, so that's done and dusted. But I mean, QLM has just like continued to get better throughout the year. So
I think
Like,
yeah,
maybe
I
it
think
is
on
another
paper,
roster.
it's good. It just
I think
don't
the
know,
other-
yeah.
the other thing is that like Izzy Aki, he was someone that was like rated super high, but he was someone that was like well and truly in the
He was
twilight
taking
end
the
of his
paycheck.
career. He was in this twilight years in season 6, benching Twilight in the process. But yeah, like Izzy Aki was someone that was like well and truly on the way down. And then he goes to a Saudi team, and it was like a blatant cash grab for him. And I'd say that for people like Landon and Checkers, I mean, this is like obviously, there's an element of like cash grab to join in this roster. But at the same time, what they've wound up forming, it's like pretty reasonable for
decent.
them to wind up on all of these teams, right? Like, I wouldn't say that Checkmate could find his way into a top 3 roster in Korea for sure, right?
Yeah.
So winding up on a team that pays you a lot of money in EMEA, that's kind of reasonable. Checkmate could have slotted in, maybe not top 2 in EU, because Psycho and Kev are both really high. Maybe top 2 in NA.
I think
Yeah,
I think to be
so.
I think one thing, and this is maybe a risk for the entire roster, is that they have that Rock situation, right? Because when Rock were bad at the start of last year, Checkmate actually looked really fucking shit.
Yeah,
like it was
he
like,
literally
oh,
checked out.
he looked worse. But when he went to Fnatic
Checkers.
and he was back in Korea, all of a sudden, Checkmate is competing with the best teams in Korea again, and he looks like the best player on that roster again. So it's like, it's not that he was washed up, but obviously probably an element of mental boom, team doing badly, etc., etc. That just meant he was just playing like shit as well, right? And I think that's the thing with this roster. Wow, I think there's high potential. There's also a chance that this roster could just completely collapse as well. Maybe Junk Buck is the insurance policy against
glue.
that, right? Like, who was it? Who was it in Rock Esports? Was it Kareev? Yeah,
Yeah.
I'd wager Junk Buck's got a better chance at keeping this roster together than Kareev did
I wouldn't
last
say
year.
that.
So I think this is high potential roster, but it's also like there's like a high, what would you call it? There's a big variation possibility in terms of how well this team could do, or how badly this team could do as well if it all goes wrong.
I wonder who's shot calling that team.
Tread.
Tread, actually, yeah, Tread will be doing all the talking. Actually,
Tread's got that in him.
Tread's
You guys talk. I'm listening,
in-game
but you won't be able
leader
to hear me. But I'm still listening, guys. Okay.
all right. Then we only know one part of this roster that's been announced. It is, of course, Crusty to Gen.G, which is kind of tails on to the similarly Junk Buck and Crusty both leaving Falcons. Crusty has made his way over to Gen.G, but we don't know the team yet, so there's more details to follow. But it does certainly seem like it's just going to stack the region even more. Like all of a sudden, we've gone from a year where Chris is coaching versus 0 coaches on Ents to now Chris is coaching versus Crusty, Junk Buck, and some other to be disclosed names as well.
Yeah, I mean,
Cheers.
it's a real Chris test this year.
It is. But it's one he's willing to.
How far will Chris Theory take you?
He can handle
7th
it.
to
Mate.
8th.
He can handle it. Don't worry about that. I think somewhere, I feel like the fact that Falcons lost both their coaches after winning, I think this team, like, reading between lines, this team has to be a fucking nightmare. Like, that has to just be so much.
Falcons,
like,
you mean?
Yes, yeah. Falcons must be just, like, unmanageable.
Drama, right?
Like, yeah, like everyone's so good, but everyone's just fucking, I was going to say a word that would lose his money. Everyone's just a fucking, a
Money in
ball
the
bag,
bag.
you know? A ball bag. I feel like that from what 9K and Krusty's tweets both way, it feels like actually he like prefers to coach a mixed team. And I think like he kind of like quite enjoys like the project of coaching like young up and coming players to kind of like to prove themselves as opposed to coaching like from the big dog. So I kind of respect that in a way. I also imagine that he's being paid comfortably for his services. So I don't feel, I mean, it is what it is. But obviously I think that one thing that like with the Gen.G roster is like, it feels somewhere with like the 3 teams that we've announced already today, because like, you're already starting to run a little bit low out of like the really like top big dogs in Europe, So it'll be interesting to see like whichever teams are left, like how they fill it out. Presumably, also, I imagine considering Gen.G is like super Korean, they'll definitely have imports.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
I think their
So
roster's going to be interesting when it comes out.
Yeah, me too, mate.
It's all right.
Me three, guys.
Now be in our next episode. But I'm sure we'll have some opinions.
And can't we just open up our favorite leakers' Twitter and read off a bunch of unsubstantiated claims?
I don't know. It depends. Because I'm about to like fucking roast the leakers in the Planet of the Week. So I feel somewhere it would be hypocritical for us to discuss said leaks. You know,
It was a little bit of a joke there, Chrissy. We're not going to be using the leakers' bullshit information.
Oh, Izzyaki was on my team.
Fair enough, mate. Sorry about that.
Where is he, Dan? Where is he? He's meant to be here.
I don't know where the fuck he is.
Where is he?
I mean, I did hear a disclaimer that it's okay for the leakers to be wrong.
Yeah.
Don't get mad at me if this is wrong. Which is also
Wait,
why I
do
hear
you
at
guys know
the
what
end of my news
what's the
channel
EXO
as well.
Well, for some reason they won't tweet it, but I'm
I
sure
don't
they
know
must
why.
know.
I really want to
right?
know the EXO rocks.
They should just
must
tweet it.
have
Like,
a-
there's no harm.
They must have
like,
a connect, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, what's the harm in leaking a roster? Like, why wouldn't he do it? It's weird, actually. It's really weird. We'll have to explore it later.
It does segue a little bit nicely because one of the other teams that have been announced in EMEA, and they may not be the team people are most excited about on paper, but in terms of spectacle, announcement, and surprise, nobody has done it better in the entire world so far than Fefe and Team PEPS. Because it was at PEPS LAN where they announced through this promo video, which is actually, I actually don't know what the actual name of it, and that's on me, but it's PEPS LAN for all intents and purposes. They announced Soon is returning to Team PEPS. They dropped this hype roster. I think if you've got it, Alpho, there's another link in the document which has the live reaction to when the video comes on at PEPS LAN for the first time. So I actually think this is an unbelievable way to announce the roster. Benny in the front
this
there.
is insane.
It's so
This
good.
is like- And nobody knew, right? Nobody knew.
Yeah,
So they like
yeah.
Soon.
I was shocked. Yeah. I'm so Peps pilled after this. Last year I hated on them.
yeah.
I'm a Peps fan. Like they've actually like fully won me over. Like this is all so good, you know? Like, yeah. And this is exactly why the leakers are fucking stupid. Because if Stacks
They want to spoil this.
wanted his 20 likes on Twitter, he could have spoiled this, you know? And then we would like, ruin this for all these people. But of course, there's no harm in it. So cheers. But I think this is fun. Like actually on Soon's performances. Like this guy has to be super washed up. Like that's just
Yeah, he's
my
so
feeling.
bad.
Like,
I've played
Chris,
against him in ranked. It's so bad.
Chris, you die in this video too soon.
Do I?
That's how old some of these clips are. You're in the kill feed,
Yeah, like,
Chris.
this guy's killing me. He's so washed up. It's unbelievable. But I think it's really exciting. I think it's good for the fans. Like he's about as big a name. Like he's about as storied as any Western DPS. He might actually be like the most like the. I don't know if he's like the best, but like the biggest Western DPS player of all time. So I think it's really, really good. Like I'm actually looking forward to playing them in the Swiss and stuff. But I also think like surely he's washed, you know? Surely.
I've been struggling a bit in ranked, but he's in GM.
Yeah, I watched his
He's in GM.
He was
He's in
getting
GM,
turned
yeah.
up.
Better than Architect.
I did feel bad for him. I had one game with me and Tread, and we were just running it soon on cooldown. He just kept swapping hero. He didn't really know what to do. It feels a bit like bullying, but I'm sure he'll get it back. You know, he seems like he's on the grind. He's got the right mentality for it.
I think they've said as well they are planning to sign another flex DPS, so there might be like a sort of insurance policy as well. So, because the rest of the roster, since they sort of posted it one player at a time, and to be fair, they had like a bit of a video for everyone, so it actually like best production value so far. But the full roster is going to be Ice, Soon, Zodial, who is probably one of the most exciting names, and then Zerion and FD God in the backline there. So I think it could like EMEA is really competitive, but I think this is one of the teams likely to get out of the Open Qualifier in Swiss. Like I think they'll maybe be at bottom end of the top 8. But they might be in that like 6th, 7th.
Yeah, they should be
spot.
top 8.
Yeah, I agree. And maybe like 6th best in the EU, something like that.
Yeah,
5th or 6th, something like that. Yeah.
I hope they're like fighting for relegation over and over again. That would make it much more fun.
Watch the FA stream every time.
Yeah.
Well, that's going to be some good content.
I mean, if they put Soon in, they will be fighting for relegation. I'm not going to lie. Being a Tracer player that retired 4 years ago, that is brutal. You know, if you're like
What
an
if I
one
ban
trick
his
whose specialty
Tracer?
is
What does
hiding
he
in a
do?
corner and netting your feet, like that's one thing. But
Well,
holy shit.
He played Valorant in the meantime, right? So it's not like he's been hard away from gaming. He's been competing in like some.
It's a good thing that the movement in Valorant is super comparable
It's
to
the
playing
same.
Tracer.
It's the same.
Yeah.
It's the same.
That's
from my understand. Then we can probably whiz through these next ones because I don't think there's too much to talk about. But maybe some of the teams to keep an eye on for the OWCS Open qualifier, and that might be rounding up our top 8. Again, very EMEA centric again, as I think stuff's still moving in North America. But there's Hybrid's team, which is going to be Hybrid, Cloud, Cookie, Skyle, Cronus. They're looking for an org. So if you're an organization watching this right now, there's a team right there for you. But this team, I reckon this will be another one like alongside PEPS in that top 8 kind of spot.
Yeah, I think we'll probably have to fight to get in, but I think could easily qualify for top 8.
Yeah. Then also on the sort of in this battle to get into top 8 is probably SRP check. Obviously, Claudia's got the boys back together for one more ride. Danid, Fi, all the people you would expect on there. They've once again got 1 billion support players, just in case, because you never know. It's important with a roster limit of 7 to have 4 players who can play support on there. So you just have...
And then a ride player as your tank.
And then a ride player, yeah. So we'll see how they
He's gonna
do.
love hero bands.
Yeah.
I mean, they've been streaming scrims. He's got other heroes in his back pocket. Claudia's going to be ready, so...
The only
This
guy
te-
left on the streaming scrims wave.
Yeah, so a lot of time for Cloudy and SRP Check still streaming the scrims. It will be good content over the weekend watching them qualify. They've got a decent chance, but again, probably should stress it's really hard in EMEA to get top 8. I think it's like really competitive.
Is Aoma gone or just unannounced?
I've not seen anything.
Maybe they're gone. I haven't heard a single thing about Aoma. One thing that's kind of scaring me a little bit, maybe he's on the unannounced EXO roster. I'm a little bit worried that Ange has quit and gone to Rivals. Because my understanding is that Ange did compete in a Rivals tournament, but he didn't even come top 16 though, which is very Ange core, to be honest. But it does feel like it will be an incredible blow to European Overwatch if Ange isn't there. And I genuinely don't know how I'm going to fucking fill my stream with shit if he doesn't have at least some presence in the server this year. So I'm really hoping that he's on
I think he's actually back because he's been in my ranked games again. He went for Marvel.
Yeah, but on what team, man? It better be EXO.
He'll find a team. He'll be on EXO, I'm sure.
He will be that guy that's in the relegation games, dude. Like, that's his purpose in life.
Wait, Astro, you have a spot on the roster still. Chrissy's is full, but you've got a spare spot.
True. And
Clutch
we have a spare
pickup?
coaching slot as
Vibes guy?
Yeah, man. Could be the shout.
Run it past the team later in scrims and see if it holds any water, but I reckon we can sort it.
I'll run it past UB, see what he says.
Yeah. I'm expecting a W-Ange back from UB immediately.
Yeah.
So
For
we'll hit
sure.
a couple of the Korean news because everything in Korea is shrouded in mystery for the top 4 teams. But beneath the top 4 teams, it's actually very clear what's going on because they've already done their open qualifier and already qualified, so it's obvious. FTG are one of the teams that have qualified here, so they've got a brand new roster. There's kind of no connection to the old core that became Zeta Division, but a lot of players you'll be familiar with here: Vigilante, Sunjun, Prophet, Heesung, Vindame as well. So probably sitting in that sort of like below the big 4 in Korea type thing, but some decent players on this, but probably doesn't get much more than 5th.
Mate, can I say, Max, you are like the scouting whiz kid, you know, compared to me. What happened to Heesung? You sold me a dream that he was the greatest player of all time. The guy got perma-benched and kicked.
I mean, I was going to say, I'm actually very sad to see that Heesung got taken off that team because it's like that, you know, they played him a couple of times and it's like anytime the guy played a Winston map, he was playing really well, you know, he had like good performances, but knowing that roster and then, you know, knowing a little bit about the internals of that roster, that's a very toxic team, you know, that's got a couple of players on it that are like unbelievably toxic. A really difficult team to be a rookie on is how I would describe it. So I was really genuinely sad to see Heesung get removed from Zeta Division's core because I don't know what they're filling that gap with, you know? I don't know who Zeta Division is going to put in the place of Heesung that can play Winston because he actually was doing his job on that team. But I mean, he's sitting in the shadow of Bernard, you know, like you're not gonna put Bernard on the bench for Orisa, Malga, Hazard, you know. But Heesung, I mean, he's like this player that still had this like insane demonstrable potential. They play him only for Winston. He wins his maps, and then they kick him. Like, be fucking for real. And you know, you're saying like, oh, this was like some delusional scout. I mean, you know, he won when he played. He did pretty well.
The Uncoachable section or what here, boys?
Ah, fuck, dude. I wish I had my webcam for this one. Because he was hot property coming into NA too. Like the NA teams wanted to get him, but there were just some troubles with a third roster slot. You know, something about a partner org not existing.
Well, he's also a guy who falls into the category of not been on a mixed team before, young player, would be like a high risk import. You know, when you and Chris was talking earlier about like Twilight and Faith, rock solid. You know, these guys will have like a decent level of English and they'll be able to handle a mixed team.
Yeah, he sounds like the ultimate gamble pick for a mixed roster. Like you pick up a 17, 18-year-old Korean player that has never spoken English in his entire
Stick
life.
him in
like
America somewhere.
You're a crazy person for sure.
Mate. Yeah. All right.
Just realized I might actually have a team meeting before scrims.
Yubi got something to say or what? Did you just get a ping from Yubi?
I've just looked at the Discord and I'm seeing people join a voice channel. I'm like,
Is it a problem if they do the team meeting on Uncoachable?
That would be good content right there.
If you need to go, it's okay.
We got to get him in the quiz. He's got 3 minutes.
Yeah, quiz.
All right, yeah. Let's see. The last piece of news was just Poker Face, which is just the poor boys have lost all of their roster.
But just get the quiz out of the way.
Yeah,
I'm already here.
That's all right. Yeah. That takes us to the quiz anyway. So yeah, so Poker Face have a roster. It's not that good. It's just the leftovers. They'll do very badly this year.
You're still talking about Poker Face. Quizmaster, get into it.
All right, okay, quiz. I'm actually now officially outsourcing the quizzes. Some of the loyal fans of Uncoachable have said, listen, you're cooked.
You lazy fuck.
Mate, it's tough. It's tough work. I didn't expect to have to do
30 episodes in.
Yeah, it's like, but okay. What I'm going to ask for is everyone who was at Stockholm who won an individual award in OWL or OWCS as a coach/player. So anyone that won Roll Star, MVP, Coach of the Year's count, if that gives you any. And then I think I've got I've got maybe 15, 16, and then we can go quickly.
Right,
quick.
Go on, Chris.
Okay, yeah, good shout.
Moon.
Chris. Yes, Moon, good shout.
Haddy.
Yeah, Paddy actually won Roll Star and Dennis Hockala Award.
Proper.
Yeah, good shout.
Someone.
Yes, good shout.
Lip.
Yeah.
Shoe.
Yeah.
Oh fuck, dude. Now I'm dry. I'm pretty sure Crusty got snubbed. Like Coach of the Year came out after he won twice.
Yeah.
Oh god, and Junkbuck never would have won it. Oh fuck, it's so tough. It's so tough.
OWCS counts too, so it's not just Overwatch League.
Dude, I don't even know what the OWCS. Wait, the OWCS awards from that year?
Yes.
Oh, Sugar Free.
Yeah.
Oh, there were OWCS awards?
Yeah, they were like MVPs for each region.
Yeah.
Qadsiah.
Yeah.
Torong.
Oh my god, we're actually undefeated so far, and there's only like 4 or 5 to go.
Torong got one, I think.
Yeah, you're right. Torong good.
Wait, was there one for each role in each region?
I think it was no. Well, there was a role star
like,
across all of OWCS, and then you had an MVP and MVP of each tournament too.
MVP of each tournament. Jesus fucking Christ.
I mean,
Stalker.
listen, mate, this is yeah, good.
Does Esports World Cup count?
Yeah, I think so.
So jump in then.
Yeah, jump in. Good.
Fuck,
Okay.
I was just going to say that. I'm running
Final
out.
3.
Didn't Shu win AWC?
Yeah, but we've already said no. Well, I don't know.
No, jump in one.
Jump in won Dallas.
Jump one MVP.
Jump in was Dallas.
Oh my god, Dallas.
Yeah, he got the watch. Remember the Porsche watch?
He's driving around right now in it.
Merit. You win any?
I was going to say that
no,
one, actually.
No, not Merit.
And you've already said proper. I said shoot Cho wrong.
3 players all played for the same team, ironically.
In OWCS.
Hambin.
Yes. Yep. Hanbin.
Oh, is it? Is it just like so? It'll be fielder then?
Yep. Fielder. One more to
Smurf?
go. No. What was
Chio.
Ooh.
Chio.
Smurf.
Yeah. I don't know,
Way to fuck it up, dude.
Smurf's got
We had
some
the hint.
awards for sure.
I don't know. Maybe he never got like he was always in 2 tanks, so maybe he never got Roll Star, and he definitely didn't get. Like,
Did he
MVP
never
or
get
anything.
rolls? Didn't he get roll star in like 20?
Yeah, he did. He got Roll Star Tank
22?
2022.
Well, listen,
Just
mate, I
checked
didn't
it.
need
This guy had the
I-
Wikipedia up pre-fight. He was already cheating.
I mean,
That
I
wasn't
didn't-
cheating. I've just got off it. I've just checked it.
Daniel,
You
don't
definitely
worry,
had it.
because even if you get that point, you still lost because you fucked up the pick on Cho wrong. So,
Yeah.
and Xavier can't get the extra point because the
It's just
format
over
is just
before I
broken.
get. Yeah, it's just over before I get. I got every
Another
answer
quiz
right and I
championship under my
lose.
belt.
Every answer right and I lose. Unbelievable.
Unreal.
It's a format problem.
Fuck off to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, this is almost as bad as having Ilios in the pool time and time again when it counts. All right, go to your
That's
team
quite
meeting,
bad.
Daniel.
You got a VOD review?
There's only 3 people in the voice channel, so I'm not the
Oh, fuck, you got
latest
heaps
one
of
right
time.
now.
I
So
mean,
I'll be
it's-
fine.
yeah,
yeah,
we'll just-
it'll be
Client of the
late.
week. Client of the
Yeah,
week.
Yeah. So there's a few candidates for client of the week. I mean, one we've discussed already, which is obviously maybe Blizzard's handling of the partner problem and sort of letting NRG slip through their fingers. So we've already discussed that one a little bit. Maybe this is a bit of a throwback. It was a while ago now. But do you remember when Toronto did their "We're leaving" post? But it was just really
The day
fucking
before?
confusing.
Oh, yeah. That was
it
so
was just
bad.
really.
They teased it.
They teased that they were coming back almost, and then tweeted.
Yeah, they teased
but
the
we're
video
leaving."
with
this
car
isn't
Q.
necessarily goodbye.
Yeah. So that felt like a pretty big fumble and then I think their excuse was, well, we didn't know if we were going to stay or leave when we recorded the video. Like there was
Even
no
though they
Why
didn't
other.
record
apply
the
for the
video?
program.
Well, there's no
Why-
exactly. It's not like there's a billion ways to work around this solution, of which none of them seem to occur to Toronto Defiant at the time. So
Yeah, the deadline was December 12th for like the second round of expressions of interest into the partner program, and the first one was like December 3rd, and they tweet this at December 11th, 8 p.m. So like I get the feeling they knew they weren't applying at this point, just quietly.
or you just cut that last bit, or do 2 takes or something. You know, it's like there's so many solutions that could have saved everyone a lot of confusion. So
Massive.
those ones are in there. But I think the front runner, I think for probably all of us, is going to be the leakers. I don't know if we want to separate them out or if we just want to lump
Nah,
them
it's
into
just-
some
it's
kind of
one.
ugly clump.
One.
So,
Very ugly.
Just stacks OW.
like I've been complaining about it on my stream almost every opportunity I get, because it's just a litany of people who have 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th hand information, and they will just repeat anything that's said in their DMs. They will do no due diligence to check this is actually true, or if there's any, potential negative implications to it. All of a sudden, like, if you reveal some of this information that's meant to be confidential, maybe that changes people's negotiations or something, right? We've already seen how bad communication can affect a team like NRG and then affect a region like North America. So then, do you think any of these people tweeting these leaks, tweeting these things out, care about anything in terms of protection of the scene, protection of the orgs, of the players, or respect for their negotiations? Or do they just like it when that bit of Twitter that is sometimes blank turns red with like? Do they just like that bit and they give a little notification sound? What are their real motivations and interests? Because I think it's pretty fucking obvious what they really care about.
I had a 2.5-hour debate with Stacks OW in Twitter DMs this week. And that's what I said to him. I said, listen, just own it, just say that you like the Twitter attention and clout that you get. And for the life of him, he could not admit it. Like, it was like, oh no, I don't care about clout. If I cared about clout, I would just post giveaways 24/7. Fucking clout you get from giveaways, mate, It's like, oh, I like to know things. And it's like, oh, I only like to give like right information. And I'm like, what the fuck are you saying? It's so obvious that you just you've never
repeat anything.
This is it. Just repeat. Like, my mum told me she was going on holiday, so that I found out some information. It doesn't fucking mean that I'm a fucking legend. Just knowing information, people telling you things means nothing. It's so irrelevant that someone told you something. I don't know. Like, I think like what you're saying is true. Like, I don't think it necessarily ruins many contract negotiations. But I think it robs orgs the opportunity to do something like what PEPS did, like it robs them like an opportunity to to have some fun and to have like hype and surprise announcements, you know. But I don't know. Like these people just own it, you know. Just say you like being listen. Twitter clout is the most powerful currency in the world. I've seen people do horrendous things to get likes on social media. Just admit it, no problem.
Plus, there's just like, just because this time it didn't fuck over anyone's negotiations doesn't mean that it's always just going to be fine. Like, if he put out that Izayaki thing that he's on our team, and then all other flex supports are just like, oh, well, he signed that guy, and then we lose out on flex supports. That could happen, you know? There's a chance that happens.
Overall,
it causes
that
mass
like,
confusion.
Izayaki's gone, so we have to get somebody else or something. Like, we need to move him down our priorities or something. And I think, like, when these leakers are posting it, there's not a single time has that thought run through their head of how will this affect the player, how will this affect the teams. So I think these guys, they clearly don't care. They don't care about the players. They don't care about the team. They don't care about the scene in any real way. Only as a fucking vehicle to get attention for themselves. That's all.
It's not even like it's not vaguely professional. You know, like when Halo of Thoughts and fucking
even Halo was
Michael.
He was a fucking.
They were still
right.
We'll
bleep it out.
But at least they were doing it in a vaguely professional way. Like Halo of Thoughts was putting out blogs and doing articles and stuff, and actually trying to make it like look professional. Stacks is just. Going for it. Just
Yiska
tweeting
was
names.
So good at it, right?
Putting names on Twitter. Just fucking go.
Yiska was like an article. It was always correct. It was always well written. And then it degraded to Halo. And now somehow it's got worse than Halo. Like we've actually like gone below. And it's just people who are afraid of their own face but want Twitter likes. It's just, I don't know. It's fucking crazy. And
I think
don't know.
To be a leaker, you should at a bare minimum have to tweet a selfie and then make that your profile picture every time you leak.
Agreed.
Because I will say as well, the problem here isn't like what we're complaining about isn't leaks. As in like when information gets out. I think there's examples in other games like Monte Cristo, Richard Lewis, people who leak stories, but most of the time what their leaks are focused on isn't, guess who just signed this contract. It's to reveal stuff that is maybe controversial or malpractice within the scene or something, you know, like, hey, this player was screwed over in contract negotiations, or this org hasn't paid out their money, or here is a deal that Blizzard or whoever did, right? That seems a little bit suspicious, stories, right? Like actual stories that wouldn't have got out anyway. Because no surprise here, if the Twisted Minds roster wasn't leaked, I mean, the Twisted Minds were going to tell us who was on the roster. The announcement was coming. The information hasn't been like exposed, industry secret. The use for leaks is like Edward Snowden, like expose something that wouldn't have been exposed anyway, right? But I mean, the gap between Edward Snowden and Stacks, it's significant. it's unbelievable. There's maybe not a bigger gap that's ever been mentioned in history, but the gap is ridiculous. And there's no due diligence, there's no checking of facts, no concern for the players. I mean, all of them, I'll lump them all in together. They're all just a fucking stain on the scene, really. If they all disappeared tomorrow, nothing would be lost.
True. Or we'd lose Exo's socials.
So something to gain, even.
The thing too,
I do think.
Like, go on, you go.
I was going to say, you know, it should be your face and your full name. You know, you should be opening yourself up to personal attacks which follow you after the fact. If you're going to, you know, leak people's, you know, personal information, which is often completely false, that should follow you. You know, there should be a consequence to the fact that you're just lying or basically posting unsubstantiated rumor as fact. That should follow you in some capacity, you know? But instead you can just be some anonymous loser on Twitter tweeting the same shit. You know, use a pro player's name that you've never had a conversation with in your life and then fucking just go for gold. That should follow you. At least Halo, imbecile and dyslexic as he may be, that guy's name is Aaron Brown. That's going to follow him forever. You know, he owns it. That guy tanked years of getting called a fucking moron on social media. So in my opinion, Aaron Brown, Halo of Thoughts, earned it. He earned the right to tweet like a fucking idiot. Because now everyone knows that Aaron Halo Brown is a fucking idiot. The same cannot be said for Stacks OW. So I think that's my stance.
I'm on the same page. Did Stacks in the tweet to me not say, I only tweet if like the org gives me confconfirmation?
Yes. Unbelievable delusion.
I really doubt he asked TM for confirmation about our roster.
Yeah.
Well, he said the Ultimates was the example, Chris. So you guys signed off, right? You guys gave him the go ahead.
Maybe he did. Like, I'd be shocked if someone from our org was fucking replying to Stacks, but maybe it was. But there is no way the VP roster he leaked definitely didn't sign off, because I know they don't want anyone to know. The Koreans, you think he's got an inside source at fucking T1? You think Russia's like, yeah, it's okay, bro. Let the people know. Like a T1 return to Overwatch would be so fucking hype. It's ruined. Like, it's ruined. Whatever they tweet is ruined because of this fucking guy with fucking Ronaldo Brennan Johnson as his profile picture, you know? And he says, oh yeah, like I got told the team is okay with people knowing. What the fuck are you talking about, mate? Like,
no org would be okay with it.
Just admit it. Just say, I love Twitter attention. The dopamine is addicting. That's why I do AMAs at work on my break, because I'm starved for attention. Just say those words and I don't have a fucking problem, you know? Like, and the biggest giveaway, this is why I tweeted what I tweeted, was if there was no harm like they claim, he would leak EXO's roster. He would leak his own team's roster because there's no harm. But he doesn't, because as he told me in DMs, his boss would fire him. Why would he fire you if there's no harm, mate? Bosses don't fire you for no harm. That's interesting. Why did he not leak Tread's team's roster? Because apparently they told him they didn't want it to leak. Oh, so you only leak rosters if you don't have friends who ask you not to do it. Oh, it seems like there's some sort of like ethical or some harm there. But no, and when I say this to him, he couldn't, the mental gymnastics were fucking unbelievable. Oh, I don't leak EXO because I'm a social media manager. I didn't get the information as a leaker. So therefore it's wrong to as a leaker, as a fucking professional leaker. Oh, he's a leaker, he got the information. Like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Oh, what does your dad do? Oh, he's a leaker, yeah.
Oh shit, he's a fucking leaker.
I mean, that's genuinely that's what Halo's kid has to say at school.
When he's getting fucking bullied.
When it's, parents' job show and tell or whatever they do at school, you know. This is my father, Aaron Halo Brown. He's a leaker.
It's just fucking insane. And then half of it's wrong, you know? Like, half the information's wrong. And then, okay, this is the last thing I'll say before I'm done with this fucking guy. It pissed me off so much when he tweets like a lineup of like VP or someone with like Psycho on it, and then Psycho goes to TM and he's like, oh yeah, things changed. No, things didn't change. You just leaked before anything was confirmed.
Yeah, you're just fucking wrong.
Are you just leaking who's in DMs with each other? Oh, like, hello, Astro, I'm in your DM. Oh, I'm leaking that Chris and Astro together. Or things changed. Things don't just change. You either are unsigned and then you're signed. You just tweet it like a fucking idiot.
The big example of this is people will know if they follow football, Fabrizio Romano. And what Fabrizio does, he leaks every transfer, to be fair to him, but he is always fucking right. And again, what does Fabrizio have? One, his real name and picture on Twitter. So if he is wrong, he gets culpable. Same with Richard Lewis, right? Richard Lewis, Yiska, 100% accuracy records. And why does that matter? Because it's their fucking job and reputation. It's their name on the line. Whereas all of this is all just they're happy to throw out misinformation. And then, like, what was it? One of them, I forget which one. One of them fucking tweeted like, oh, don't get mad if it's wrong. It's like, what do you mean? If you think it might be
Stacks,
wrong,
I think.
don't fucking tell me.
Stacks,
don't fucking, like... Because people are like, because the argument is, well, the people want it, you know, the people want it. I was like, yeah, but people want accurate information. If people just want you to leak rosters that are wrong, I'll just go on Wikipedia and put 6 names together and go, that's a roster. Like, I don't know. It's just, just a joke. I'm going to be so glad when the off-season is done and these people just fall into fucking irrelevance again.
Irrelevant. Yeah, but what are they going to do? Where are they going to get their fix from? That's the problem.
Well, they'll do giveaways, mate. They'll just do giveaways. Don't be silly.
Fucking insane. I should have just done giveaways. Fucking unbelievable.
What's he giving away?
Giveaways. Give away a selfie, mate. That's what I want. Give away a fucking selfie.
Selfie in your full name, if you don't mind.
Yeah. I'll join that giveaway.
Get a signed photo or something on the go, then surely we'll be in the money.
Wouldn't be an uncoachable episode if we didn't shit on the casters a little bit, though, right?
Oh, this gives there's a special follow on, because one thing, and I do also that annoys me out the leakers, is what you see sometimes is the leaker will leak something, and Reddit and social media, they'll just treat it as absolute fact. Because also, a lot of the time, social media isn't also interrogating the evidence to be like, is that definitely true? Is there a reason, that maybe Stacks doesn't have the connections at T1 that he claims to have or anything like this? They don't interrogate the information. And then when a new leak comes out, they're like, oh yeah, this is obviously true. And they just take whatever the latest information is as fact. So I can understand it a little bit. There's reason for like a bit of allowance here for the general public, right? They don't have industry experience, they don't have inside information, they don't have any kind of connections to verify any of these sources. So if they just take stuff at face value, I can understand it, right, from the general public. But if you've worked in Overwatch for years, maybe all of the years Overwatch existed, you're an industry expert, you're an industry legend, why would you just see a tweet on Twitter from some guy with Overwatch in their handle that you've never fucking heard of and presume it's absolute truth? Because that's what Uber did to one of Stacks' tweets about salaries. You know the one we talked about earlier about salaries? When he's like, salaries have increased massively this year. And then old Mitch comes in, must be nice. Like, it's just, like, now, all of a sudden, fucking Uber is upset at something that's just not true.
Yeah.
Uber should know. Uber should, like, partly the leakers are at fault here, but also Uber should know better, right? He should know better.
I mean, I think the thing about this one that's so crazy is this is basically the industry equivalent of Carpe replying to this tweet and saying the same thing. Because this is like the most established caster in the game that I think, don't quote me on this one. I will, preface it by saying that I could be completely wrong here, something that a leaker may never do. But I'm pretty sure Uber had an exclusivity deal with the Overwatch League for the longest time and was always the face of the game. So definitely one of the premier casters, highest paid casters in the title. And this is basically the equivalent of Carpe, who's made an absolute packet in Overwatch throughout the years, coming in as everybody's salaries have gone down massively. It's like we're talking about how pro player salaries have gone from 6 figures with housing and food included to you are one of the lucky few, one of like 3 in the world, minus the Falcons, if you're earning 50 to 60K a year, no housing, no food. And he's coming in saying, must be nice that people are getting a massive salary increase this year.
Mate, it wasn't nice to be an Overwatch player last year, but I didn't see much sympathy from them in there.
Where was the sympathy for the Valiant boys and Seeker and all of this on their like scam contracts, not the full minimum, all of this? No sympathy. I will say in defense of Uber, that guy is working 3 esports titles, and I saw him tweeting the other day. He's got like engineering work on.
Also taken a part-time engineering job, which is what his degree is in. So he well and truly is working himself to the fucking bone, casting 3 esports titles and working part-time as an engineer. So there is no doubt that he has personally experienced a massive salary crash and probably has kids in private school or a massive fucking mortgage or something, because that sounds like a whole lot of money that he has to be earning in order to be keeping up with everything. But the reality of the situation is that everybody's salaries have crashed, and then being all like, must be nice, when, you were probably earning more than all of the bare minimum players for 6 years straight. It's a bit much.
Must be nice. The players are above minimum wage this year.
It must be nice.
Well, yeah, barely, but yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not even half of them.
Minimum wage, Chris.
It's not even half of them.
Yeah, but I got a
he's
just
salary
believed it at face value.
Yeah. I swear I earned less than every single one of my friends in real world, and even then I got like a nice, I'm still. It is what it is,
It must be nice, mate.
Love of the game. It is nice.
So, have we said our piece? I feel like it's
we've said a piece.
We've said a piece. So I think there are actually a lot of viable candidates. You can argue that in many ways, Blizzard's fumbling of the NRG situation has probably.
I think that's got to be the top one.
It's kind of caused the most damage.
No, we hate leakers so much here.
I know we hate leakers.
Actually, the leakers piss me off more than that almost. So I actually.
No. It's client behavior.
That's just because Blizzard hide their client behavior behind the closed door.
No. There is client is different. I think, in my opinion, my humble opinion, client is different to like.
Well, the thing is, Blizzard are the employers. They can't be clients.
Like it's like.
The NRG are the clients officially.
No, not officially.
But I feel like we're conflating ideas here.
Okay, then give it to the leakers then. I hate the leakers anyway.
Yeah, give it to the. I think the leakers, they're lucky our reward show was last because they could have won Client of the Year. You know, like,
easily.
In 11 months, I'm remembering this. Don't worry.
Yeah, I'm gonna be so glad when they all piss off. And actually, not only that, because Stacks works for EXO, I'm actually preying on EXO's downfall as well. Like I want
so bad.
I want just anyone connected just to suffer. You know, like,
you know.
Obviously, I don't know what players are on the EXO roster, of course, because that's confidential. But when it finds out,
you're recycling the storylines. Back to hating EXO.
Yeah. Peps,
Last year, Chris gave us all the reasons.
Yeah, I mean that's it. They just keep outdoing themselves, you know. Cheers to EXO.
Cheers, EXO.
All right, it's a client of the week. All the leakers, all the
Stacks OW.
And also, whoever he's contacted at T1 can also get lumped in at that, of course, for giving away his announcement. It's probably
fucking
Faker, yeah.
Faker.
Fucking Faker, stop talking to Stacks OW, please.
Get out of these DMs, come on! So, I think that wraps us. We're going to be doing another episode not too long after this because we should be getting the other wave of the remaining partner teams, the announcements. We'll obviously see the OWCS qualifiers this weekend, which of course Crusty will be presumably winning with his stacked roster. So we'll be able to talk about all of that action and do a bit of a preview for the first
yeah,
week
you have
of
to
OWCS.
play in that.
I love the Swiss, mate. I love the Swiss. It's not a.
I love
Not,
the Swiss
must be
face.
nice. That's what you should have said to me. Must be nice.
So, best of luck to Chrissy. We'll kick off a regular season a couple of weeks after that. Obviously, thank you once again to FACEIT League for sponsoring. Go sign up for FACEIT League Season 4. Use our affiliate link, which again, I'm sure is going to be on the screen somewhere. I'm sure of it. It's actually a link. You can't use, there's no code. You have to use the link.
Code
it'll get you
Uncoachable.
20% off. It's the best way. And obviously,
Code Uncoachable.
if you want to support us on Patreon, that's a great way to support us as well. Support the Overwatch scene by signing up to FACEIT, support your favorite podcast by signing up to our Patreon, and support the leakers by telling them to piss off every time they tweet.
Cheers to that.
Cheers. I lifted a drink as well, if you even care.
I knew you did, man. I knew you did.
I can see it there. It's a big gold cup you're drinking from.
Champions Cup, mate. What do you know about that, Chrissy?
Huh?
Just no need. Just no need.